Do roll call for us. So be ready when it gets to that. Okay, Lauren, Mark, ready to go? All right, let's call this meeting to order. Here we go.
Morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call the NIAA Realignment Committee meeting to order this June 7th, 2023 at Faith Lutheran. Our great host today. We appreciate that. And at this time, we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everybody. Roll call, please, Tia.
Colin Fowler,
I am here.
Pam Slum, here. Art Anderson,
Here.
Mike Brooks, Sean Fitzsimons,
Here.
Ron Gerzon,
Here.
Ken Higby, Dallas Larson,
Here.
Kevin McCartland,
Here.
Tony Coldian,
Here.
Ray Parks,
Here.
Mike Strong, David Vick,
Here.
sorry, Brett Welcher,
Here.
Mike Coper,
Here.
Donnie Nelson,
Here.
Paul Anderson,
Here.
Bart Davis,
Here.
Lori Locke, here. Robert Northridge, Tia Wonder, myself, I'm here.
And Tia, did we just double check? Mike Brooks, are you on this? No. Okay, thank you. And then same for Ken, Dr. Higby, is he on? Not see him. Okay, I
Yep.
thought they were both going to be with us today, so I wasn't aware of that. Okay, they may, Mr. Davis, if you see them jump in later, please let us know. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Okay,
Now we're gonna
Yeah.
go to agenda item 4, the chair and co-chair announcements. I think the restrooms were already identified here earlier. Again, I'd like to thank Faith Lutheran for being the host site today. Ms. Sloan, anything that?
I have nothing at this time, let's go.
Okay, thank you.
if I may.
Donnie
Chair,
Nelson.
yep, thank you. Donnie Nelson from the staff. Just to recognize a few people, the realignment process has been interesting, right? And to some degrees, I'd say entertaining. I think those are my two favorite words for this process, interesting and entertaining. And I want to recognize a few people for their outstanding contributions. As we all know, these are unpaid positions. A lot of time, energy, and effort this go around. We've had some extra meetings. The travel commitments for these people have been unbelievable. And all with the best interest of heart, right? To represent the schools from their leagues or regions to the best of their abilities. Chair Stallworth, I don't know if this will be your last realignment meeting or not. We'll wait and see. Not throwing that out there. Just wanted to thank you and recognize you for all your work in coordinating this process. It's been a lot different process than you've ever experienced before. I know that. So
That's all.
yeah, same thing. And to co-chair Sloan, same thing. Just want to recognize you for your work in this. Not saying this is your last one. We don't know what the makeup of the realignment committee will be next time going forward. I know we're going to start looking at that very quickly as we enter the next school year in the fall. But just for a few people, Art Anderson, your position will rotate off because we'll have the 5A Northern, we'll have a new president, I'm assuming.
I assume, I'm not sure.
Okay, don't know. Okay, I understand Mike Brooks is still staying, Sean Fitzsimons is still staying, Mr. Gerzon, again, don't know what it'll be the next cycle. Dr. Higby, I believe, is still possibly staying on if we align this way. Mr. Larson, I know you are staying to my knowledge, it depends on how they're. Oh, it'll be Jason Odegaard, that's right.
Odegaard is the new
president. So Dallas, thank you. Again, you've seen this for a lot of years and how the 3A South right mirrors to the 3A North and trying to balance. So it's a lot of work on your behalf. So thank you, Dallas. Let's see, Mr. Partland, same thing. Depending on how we restructure realignment, don't know. Mr. Folsian joining us, right? Getting onto this committee in a kind of the mid cycle. But we'll see. Hopefully that works out. Still have that position with you here. Tony. Yeah. Ray Parks, you're on virtual with us. Ray, thank you. I know you are retiring as principal, obviously leaving as a 3A Northern president, Mr. Parks. Same thing. You've seen this process for a lot of years, and Ray, I just want to say thank you. And I know a lot of these people are going to see at the board meeting here next week, but Ray, thank you. Thank you for all
You
your
bet.
work.
Thank you.
Same thing. We're going to see you next week at the board meeting, but you are also retiring. What a great career, and the realignment process, the things that you have brought to the table. It's been quite a few years. So thank you. David, I believe Vic is staying on with us and rotating now in as it was the 1A, and that'll be a liaison to the board position. Mike Hofer, I know you will be Charter School Rise rotating. Not sure what your status will be here with this committee, but I know with staying here because Dave Henneman's taken over. We're all set there. So Mike, thank you. And one person we will not be able to recognize next week. He won't be there as our liaison to the board representing the private schools and obviously retiring here at Faith Lutheran, and therefore it's not in the realignment process. Someone who has seen this school, I mean, Faith Lutheran, go from 1A to 5A. I don't think that will ever happen again in the history of our association. One individual will see a school advance through enrollment, all different classifications. And you've seen the state grow tremendously. You've been a tremendous influence on the state, in representing private schools, but to a great abilities. What you brought to the table in fair and equitable competition between private schools and relating to charter schools, most recently, and obviously, public schools. Brett Walter, we are going to miss you more than you will ever know. And since we aren't going to see you next week, we'd like to give you a little bit of a thank you. So come on up here, if you would. Okay, there's your lifetime pass. If and when you make it back to the lobby of the state track meet next year. There we go. That will get you. And again, just thank Brett Walter for the many years of service to Nevada high school students. So thank you. Thank you. All right. Cheers, Star. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's just again, what this committee accomplishes, they need to do.
Like everybody knows, so that Mike Brooks has joined us here. Zoom. So thank you, Mike, for showing up. Appreciate it. I'd also like to thank the committee members for the outstanding work that they do. This is one of the toughest committees that we've had here for a while from a statewide perspective. The work is being commendable, and we appreciate your service. Thank you. On to agenda item 5, public comment. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matters not on the agenda. Item raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon until compliance with notice procedures of the open meeting law has been accomplished. Members of the public who wish to submit their comment via email were instructed to contact Tia Wonder prior to the meeting and have their comment read into the record. Members of the public that are present need to complete a public green comment card and submit it to the administrative assistant prior to the opening of this item. A limit of 3 minutes per person and 5 minutes for a spokesperson of the group will be imposed for both in-person and email comments. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are determined to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. Public comments received by email will be read into the record. Are there any? Okay.
Okay. Just when I suggest looking at it, just because I can't read all.
We do have 3 minutes on that.
Keep government that.
Oh, yeah, we're okay with that one. It's an actual proposal. Yeah, here we go. We don't need to read that one.
None of these, I don't have any.
Yeah, it's in the packets. Yeah, we'll address it as part of the review.
You have nothing?
Any cards turned in? Forms?
For, agenda item 8, you do have.
Number 8.
And I also have a number 8 that's on the agenda item as well. So because of that, we'll be able to Speak now. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So at this time, we have no other comments. This particular juncture of the committee meeting, and we'll save those for those agenda items. So that is it for agenda item 5, I believe. We're going to agenda item 6, the approval of June 7, 2023 meeting agenda for possible action.
And committee members, flexible would be very nice. For myself, I make a motion to approve the agenda for June 7th.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Thank you. We have a first and a second. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. On to agenda item 7, the approval of May 30th, 2023 meeting minutes for possible action.
These are pages 5 through 10 in your packet. 5 through 10. Same thing, committee. We need a motion, please, if you are ready to do so.
Good. We have a first and a second. Are there any questions or discussion? Are those in Zoom land out there? If you have something, please let me know. Just holler in. Let me recognize you. I appreciate that. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We have approval for May 30th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Yeah, and Chair Stallworth, those are committee members that are online. Again, if you need to, obviously want you to speak up, but if you need to send me a text, I'm going to keep my phone right here, obviously on silent, but you can text me that, hey, Donnie, I need to comment. Please feel free to do so. Okay, I'll ask you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. On to agenda item 8. Hearings of NIAA member schools and their districts regarding the recommendation of the Realignment Committee for the alignment of schools for the 2023-24 and 24-25 school years. The hearing will include appeals by schools recommended for placement into classifications for spring sports for 3A, 4A, and 5A, to which they believe they should not be assigned for the 23 to 25 alignment for possible action. Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Stallworth. What we're going to do, our order of events for today, we're going to start with softball. And the reason we're going to start with softball is we have one, it's not even an appeal, it's a request to go independent status. We have somebody online, Erica Murphy, the athletic director of Truckee High School, asking for that. So we're going to go softball first, then we're going to go to baseball, so softball, then baseball, then track and field, and then swimming and diving. I am not aware of any other appeals this time with regards to boys golf or boys volleyball, but we will save those. We'll obviously address them at the very end if we need to. If something happens over the course of the meeting where something comes up in boys golf or boys volleyball. But again, softball first, then baseball, then track and field, and swimming and diving. For baseball, track and field, and swimming and diving, we have presenters first. And when we get to those sports, the presenters will have 5 minutes on behalf of the group to present. And then if we, depending on how things go, for individual school appeals, those will be 3 minutes each. And of course, after the 5-minute presentation from the group or the 3-minute presentation from the school, the committee can then engage in question and answers. And we'll go eventually into actions number 9 to approve those, most likely on an overall comprehensive sport by sport basis. That's how we handled the last 2 seasons, I believe. It seems like it was successful in doing that. Especially take the totality of everything involved. So that said, Chair Stallworth, Co-Chair Sloan, I'll direct everybody's attention to page 12. This is our 5A, 4A, and 3A softball alignments as proposed through the Realignment Committee last week, and our May 30th, sorry. So, and then on page 20, just again, that's in there, rubrics points. So if we need to reference that, and then on page, so I know we're jumping around here a little bit, page 12, again, page 12, softball, on page 20, softball rubric points. And then the independence request letter from Truckee is on page 34. Page 34. So that, I think we can call in, is Erica Murphy in the room with me? Okay, that, then let's, Jerry, you'll need to call Erica Murphy and
Give her 3 minutes, please.
Okay, Erica, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. You hear us pretty good?
So, yes.
We hear you very well, so go ahead and talk to us. You got 3 minutes, young lady.
Just repeating exactly that I had said earlier in the letter, we would like to go independent for 2 years for softball only. We do have a plan to improve our program with some out of season training, some club stuff, things that we are having to substitute because our Parks and Rec locally has no longer a softball program in it. So we're kind of taking the lead and making sure that we can fulfill that part of it. We do have a plan to come back. We just need to rebuild, and we need to rebuild with some basic skills. It has become really apparent the last 10 years that we've just been really declining, and we do the travel that we need to do to Elko and Spring Creek, but we really don't want to make them come 6 hours to do 3 innings and then just get back on the bus and go home. So we want to be competitive, and we want to work towards that. So thank you for listening, and thank you for considering our request.
Okay, thank you.
And again, committee members, page 34 is the letter. So I'll ask committee if anybody has any questions, first of all, for Coach Murphy. If not, then I'll bring Ray Parks into the conversation. I just want to ask him a question here in a minute too, but first we could just open up in-house if we have any questions.
Are there any questions by committee members? Erica, I do have a question here. Last year, what were those numbers like on the softball team? Did you have a lower level team? What was the record? And did you have to forfeit any games? Kind of give us a little run through of what happened from a historical standpoint for your team last year.
Last year, we pretty much lost everything. Anything in league. We did have some non-league games scheduled with like Loyalton and Portola. And this year, of course, we didn't have hardly anything until at the very end of the season. We were able to get 1 game with Loyalton. I still think we lost that one as well. What I will say, as far as numbers of players, we have been very, very slim. We this year, I know, had 7 girls on JV and the rest were varsity. So we had to borrow constantly between the 2 teams. And having a schedule that we can perhaps make ourselves so that we can continue to build on that and possibly borrow players back and forth as we're building would be a lot more convenient to the program instead of trying to split up JV going somewhere and varsity elsewhere. There's lots of times we had to forfeit games and we didn't have enough players to separate from varsity and JV. So and other than that, we did have to forfeit this year with Lowry. We did not want them to come 3 hours to Golden Eagle since we didn't have a field just to play 3 innings. And we are very cognizant that we will fulfill our Western schedule, we'll fulfill our Western schools. But as far as traveling back and forth, we felt it would be better use of a lot of those more competitive schools in the East that they find a more competitive team to play.
Or Davis and I staff that helps with what Ms. Murphy is presenting. Truckee was 2-20 in varsity this year. Lost 15 of those 20 games by 15 or more runs. And we're outscored by almost 300 runs.
Was there another softball team in the league, whether it's 2A, 3A, 5A, 4A, that had a 2 and something record, lost less than 5 games? Because what I don't want to see a pattern happening is the possibility of a team having a bad year and saying, oh, because we're having a bad year, let's just go ahead and go independent for 2 years and regroup. And I don't think that's a trend. And so if that's not a trend, then we're okay. I just don't want this to be a trendsetter in terms of, you know, I was a softball coach at Hug, and there were years where we went one in 18 and one in 19 and I mean, shoot, if I could have been independent and just picked a couple of teams I wanted to do, I probably would have done that. So I don't want this to be something that's going to be a trend. I think
I would-
Erica does a great. I
I-
think you do a great job, Erica, and I think the program, definitely probably deserves this, especially your location as far as the snow and the things that you have. But I just want to bring this out to the board that once other people are seeing this and we're having a down year, then let's go ahead and just be independent for 2 years and kind of do our own thing. And that's just my biggest fear. But I understand exactly what Erica's coming from and what she's trying to do. Yes.
Mr. Mr. Stallworth, can I add something here on this part? I agree with you. And, 4 years ago when these coaches have been with the program for almost 10 years. And they came to me 4 years ago with the same concern. And I said, no, let's stick it out. Let's see if we can pull it together. They told me that there was definitely programs kind of falling by the wayside locally that would usually support them, and they're struggling. And I said, nope, let's stick it out. Let's do our due diligence. And I agree with you. I would never pull the trigger unless I saw that we just consistently have just buried ourselves. And I did say when we go independent, they're going to ask for a plan. So what's the plan? We want to hear it. And that's when it really set them in motion if they had to have a plan in place to come back after 2 years, because that is the plan after 2 years to come back into the 3A. So I agree with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bart.
Chair Stallworth, since the start of the 2018 season, taking out the COVID years, Truckie's won 5 games. Since the start of 2019 total. I don't think it's a situation where we're gonna have a lot of teams being struggling as much as they have struggled. So,
All righty. Thank you. Dallas.
Dallas Orange 3A South, independence, has it been 2 years, has every school that have petitioned for independence been, or independent status been for the full 2 year cycle, correct?
Yes.
We haven't had anyone petition for a 1 year or anything like that.
No, as far as I know,
Yeah, and Donnie knows, I, on staff, I can speak to that. That's the process through which we're starting right now. And at the board meeting, in the workshop, you'll see language to address that, about a team dropping a program after having already declared it, about a school wanting to have a program go from the get-go on independent status for the 2 year cycle to be the full cycle. And then also if somebody were to drop a program within the cycle, what the bounce back would be and the penalty thereof about independent status. So we've been operating under a go independent for a year, trying to carry it through for 2 years for the cycle. Remember, we used to have 4 year realignment cycles until just recently. So we're in that mode right now to make it a 2 year full cycle, correct? In different ways. You'll see that next week.
and one of the benefits of that would be scheduling.
No,
Because you have
yeah,
to tune your
exactly.
schedule, so that's the benefit of that.
So if a team mid realignment wanted to go independent, it probably, the committee's not meeting at that point to be able to approve something. So either way, it's a 2 year commitment either way.
Either way, whether you go independent or lose for 2 years in a row.
If you would ask me that question next week, when we're in the workshop about dropping mid-cycle and what the effect would be for the final year or season of the cycle plus the next cycle. Ask me that question next week if you would.
Governor Front, can we hear from Ray?
That's Lennox Paul. Let's get
Okay.
Mr. Parks on here to make sure that 3A North is in blessing this. And also 3A North, Mr. Parks, if you would, to make sure this isn't changing anything with regards to your league alignment as well. I should make sure 3A North is completely on board with this with trucking.
Yeah, so when I asked, no one, had any complaints about it, but frankly, I think they're beat down. I mean, here you go again. So you only have 2 crossover games. Now, if that was the school that was one of them, they're only gonna have that one now. So now they got, instead of finding 6 games, they gotta find 7. So again, here's another unintended consequences, but if other schools were to do this pretty soon, do we have a league? Do we have 2 divisions? I mean, I think you guys got to really address this in 2 years from now, because this scheduling where we're not making everybody play, pretty soon the little guys got nowhere to play. So I get what she's saying. I understand that, but hell, we could do that in every sport. Remember that, because now we have 2 6-team divisions. We come together for theoretically 12. but you don't have anybody to play. And again, like she says, they're gonna go find somebody more competitive. Well, who will that be? Because again, with a 4-day work week, they can only play on the weekends. And those weekends are gonna be ate up by their games that are scheduled already. So it's not like you're gonna find anybody. So you're gonna start getting a lot of complaints that they can't find games. So, but as far as anyone complaining about this, they did not.
That's well said.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Appreciate that. And again, Ray brought up some 3A issues, but specifically about Truckee going independent, it seems like the coaches and athletic directors from those schools were all in agreement that maybe that's the best thing for that school to do. Okay, so is this a voting item?
It is, just to be clear with this, we do need a motion, a second to approve Truckee's request to be independent for the upcoming 2-year cycle in softball.
I'll make the motion to allow Truckee softball to go independent status for the next 2 years.
Should we have a motion?
Art Anderson, North, I second the motion.
We have a first and a second by Mr. Anderson. Any other questions or comments? Yes,
I
Dallas.
just want to make a comment about, I think this is what we've been trying to get from, instead of appealing to go down to 2A, asking to go independent, still playing 3A, still trying to build that away. Then, so I think I agree that this is a much more better way of doing it than appealing down.
Exactly. And remember, in the past, what we've done, the schools that have petitioned, if Truckee would have came here to petition to go to 2A in softball, first thing we would have done is said, hey, have you thought about going independent? And if you remember, that was a focus a couple of years ago, here in the South, in that same conversation. Yes, Mr. Strong.
Mike Strong, way south. I think that, the thing that I think about as I sit and listen to you guys a little bit discuss this, is, can you truly stop them from going independent? At the end of the day, if I have a program in my school, we can't compete. I just say we're independent. And then 1A, we use this often. And we do the 2-year. And that's been our practice for a lot of years. I just, it's good that you vote, but I don't even know that you can, something unless you put it into some type of regulation, you can stop somebody from going independent at the end of the day.
Yes.
So just a problem.
My question is for Erica. Erica, Trumpet Simons, 2A South. Does the Truckee community realize the independent means for 2 years that you cannot qualify for any postseason playoffs or state tournaments?
That is correct. They do understand that. That's why I had that talk with them 4 years ago before the COVID hit and discussed with them, because I've coached for over 30 years in the NIAA and I knew the ramifications of going independent. I've watched Wooster with football. I've watched different schools do it, and you are pretty committed to the 2-year cycle. I don't think it's a 1-year deal. I do think it's a 2-year commitment. And the part of the commitment that's most important is that what are you going to do to change it? What are you going to do to come back? And that's the most cognizant part that I had in the conversation was, sorry about that.
Thank you. So we have a first, we have a second. Any other comments, suggestions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
And we appreciate our virtual members.
Thank you. That was clear.
That's it.
Was that both members? Mike and Greg?
Well, now.
Okay,
Yeah, well, I think we're
okay.
okay.
And the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
All right, we are going to move to our group of baseball appeals. Let me give you a little lay of the land for committee members, what's in our packets. You can take a minute and mark things down. Page 11 is what came out of our May 30th meeting with alignments proposed. Page 11. Page 19. Page 19 is the baseball rubric by which we use to put schools into leagues and regions and classes. Our last meeting. Page 27 is what we'll start with. This is a comprehensive proposal based on a group of coaches, and I'll introduce our first speaker being vetted through a school and through a principal. I'll introduce that individual here in a minute. Page 28 will be an appeal from our review. Page 28, that's to go from 4A to 5A for our review. Page 29 is an appeal from Cheyenne. That is to go from the 4A to the 3A. Page 30, appeal from Desert Pines to go from the 4A to the 3A. And that goes through page 32. And page 33 is an appeal from Las Vegas to go 4A to 5A. And then one that was handed out here today from Spring Valley, it's an insert, doesn't have a page number, obviously. And Spring Valley, that is to go from 4A to 5A, 4A to 5A. I'll make sure I get that right on here. Thank you. So what we'll do, we'll start with the general proposal first. This will be 5 minutes on behalf of the group, and then we will go to those individual proposals if needed on a alphabetical order basis. And those will be 3 minutes each. Then we'll talk about, again, questions and answers can come from the committee members to the appealers. And then we'll take a vote on a school by school or possible proposal basis at the end of it all for baseball. So we'll wrap up baseball before we advance on to other sports. Sound good, committee?
Sound good.
All right, with that said then, we'll open up with Mr. Keith Whipperman, principal at Centennial High School. I know, Mr. Whipperman, you might have others that might join you in this proposal on behalf of coaches. But if you would, I'll let you start out, and as a group, we'll have 5 minutes, sir. Thank you very much.
I'm going to cede most of my time to Coach Cerrone. I'm very in broad support of the program that Charlie has for realignment, and even looking at how leagues and playoffs are proposed for 5A. This has broad support among the South. I think we might have 2 schools vote against it from coaching standpoint, and it has broad support up north. And I'm going to have Charlie come up and speak a little bit to that proposal. The Coach Cerrone. Hi, everyone. I know many of you in the room. Everybody in this room has a vested interest in high school sports, correct? Our proposal is listed as a baseball proposal, but it's not really just a baseball proposal. It's an all sports proposal that we would like implemented maybe as a trial run for baseball. But as baseball coaches, we got together, tried to cover all the parameters of the wants and needs of the NIAA, the wants and needs of CCSD, administrators, coaches, and especially the players. High school sports have been under attack, pandemic worsened it. Well, with our proposal, we're trying to create is more stability. So we're not creating new divisions every 2 years. And in this proposal, we would create with the top 24 rubric points of the last rubric for baseball, 4 16 divisions. I just want to say that in the North, we have been in conjunction with the Northern Association. They're on board with this plan. The top 8 teams, top 2 teams from each division would compete in a 5A state playoff versus a few of the top teams from the North. The next 3-4 seeds in each division would be in a 4A true state playoff, not like what's been happening with the lower teams from the North. Then the bottom 8 teams, the 5-6 teams in each division, would compete in just a 4B regional championship. And the reason we wanted to go to this, like I said, for stability, number one, I'll put my glasses on, sorry. In the current format, it's been difficult to maintain or establish rivalries. Doing it this way, it could help recreate the rivalries, stabilize the sports, keep kids involved. It does dangle that carrot out there where your kids that you have now determine where you fall in the playoffs. There's teams in here today that are going to apply to stay up in the 5A and cultivating players, younger players. And they think they're on the cusp of competing for that 5A state championship. In this proposal, they would have that carrot out there. And they'd be able to do it. And each year is determined by the players you have, not by somebody who graduated 2 years ago or last year. And if you think about it in a job situation, everybody here has a job. You're working to accomplish a goal. You want what your work is to accomplish that goal and make it happen, or do you want someone who retired 2 years ago to help you accomplish that goal? So what we're trying to do here is, again, all sports, it would fit with maybe a few tweaks, but we want to have that happen. Finally, I'd just like to finish up with It would help, I think, lessen transfers. Because there's already, you hear scuttlebutt, hey, Acme High School going down, I'm gonna transfer to Ajax High School so I can compete in 5A and get scholarships. That's already going on, but it could help minimize it. If I know that I have that opportunity to compete for a 5A championship if our team works hard enough and it's cultivated by the coaching staff. And we all know that stability leads to success. Anywhere you look at a successful program, be it a school, company, program, there's stability there and there's consistency in leadership and who you're up against and competing against. That's all I have. Question? Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Dollar.
I have a question here. Number one is you realize that the realignment committee has a policy, procedures and programs that we've been following.
I do.
To me, this seems like more of a proposal that would come before the new next realignment committee with regards to how things should look in the future as we move forward. I respect this, and I think this is pretty phenomenal. But it's really difficult with regards to a committee working with procedures and policies to provide this for one sport, not the other, or some other issues as we move forward with this. So
I anticipate that question.
okay.
I totally agree, and I totally knew that coming in. We're trying to pose it, maybe we do that with baseball, or maybe even also softball. And you can use it for the next 2 years as a sample size and see if this is a good program going forward beyond this. And then maybe settle in the next 2 years, settle in something where we don't have to change every 2 years.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mike, then I'll get you.
Mike Coker, Charter School Liaison. Charlie, appreciate this. My question is currently in 5A and 4A, there are 31 programs. Right here on your sheet, we've got 4 divisions of 6, which is my math is correct, my grade math is 24. Where are the other 7 programs?
So we did an arbitrary cutoff. And we went with rubric numbers. And one of the positives of this is that we continue to use rubric numbers so that those teams, the team wanting to go down out of the 4A this year, can still be used. So this actually functions for the 3A as well, because I know there's a 2A school moving up to 3A that wants to go to 4A eventually. I get that, but it opens the door for teams to move up with less movement than what's going on now, with maybe 1 team or 2 teams. So, but we went with an arbitrary. It fits the criteria.
So the remaining teams would go to 3A. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And that's not, on your proposal sent to us, those remaining schools weren't listed here as 3A schools. They're not listed in your proposal, okay.
That exceeds the cap as well.
Pardon me?
That exceeds
Yeah.
the 3A
It
cap.
exceeds the 3A cap that we have based on the regulation. Yes, Anthony.
Tony, only before you probably out, that was my concern. Like, I have spent some time in the 3A. That does exceed the cap, and that would have been 18 teams in 3A. And that's a tough sell with that league.
Actually, it's 19 with Cadence.
19 with Cadence.
Okay. And those are things that the realignment committee will have to address while we go into that next realignment cycle anyway. So it just adds to the problem that we currently already have. I see that the breakdown with the 5A, 4A, 3A in the south on this, how would that look in the north?
So when I talked with Malcolm up north, I believe the top 4 teams up there would go for compete for 5A champion.
Yeah.
And then 2 teams would compete in state. And then the next 5 teams would go for the 4A state. And then just the south would be.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that I think, this is well warranted. I say what Rollins was talking about sooner, maybe it's a different time to present this, but getting all those hurdles ironed out
Yes.
would help the presentation, because I agree with what you're talking about, especially with baseball. That competition factor of wanting, your players to play at the highest level, is definitely warranted.
Well, we felt like not only does it give you the opportunity to play better team, to get better, but also in the end, the playoff competitiveness, you're playing to your level. And almost for anybody who's a P person in here or ladder tournament, that where you end up competing at your level and the playoffs become more competitive.
Very good. Kevin?
Kevin McCollum, 4-5 South. Yeah, Coach, I do appreciate the spirit of this. I know we talked about it with football a little bit of kind of having the kids that are on the field being the ones that determine where you're at instead of the kids that have graduated. So I appreciate that. There's two schools you said that were that voted against. I just kind of want to know, like, what were the concerns that came up from them, or?
So basically, Coronado were the only two schools that voted against it down here. And they just. Was I not supposed to name and say no, no?
No, you're good. Don't invite Coach.
They didn't have a good reason other than they didn't want to play weaker opponents. And for the rest of us, it doesn't hurt the good schools and it doesn't hurt the bad schools. If you're a weaker team, you get to compete against better teams and see where you need to get to. And if you're a strong team, you can play other players and just continue on being successful.
Okay, thanks, Coach. And just to reiterate, I mean, baseball community is a monster of itself, right?
Yes.
And in just the week since this came out, I mean, we're getting tons of calls from parents about how can I get my kid to your school or out of your school because of where they're at. So in the baseball community especially, that is a real thing.
And like, I don't want to be we tried to format it in such a way that would fit pretty much every sport with a few tweaks, maybe numbers of playoff teams, like I know golf is three, North, three, South, that kind of thing.
But what you did find out was that's a difficult task, because that's what we've been trying to do for 6 years
I
now.
know it's difficult.
So it's a difficult task, and I definitely appreciate that. I think all of us who are in this sports realm and athletic realm in the state of Nevada appreciate the work that people like yourself and coach associations that work their individual sport, what they do to make it better. So we definitely appreciate that. I think this would be something that we can take, put in our back pocket and future meetings as we move forward. It's something that we can think about now, and something that we could definitely look at later to implement or at least talk about and discuss as we move forward.
And that's what we were hoping to get it out there, so it can be at least 2 years down the road happen.
And we knew, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We knew it was a stretch for this time, but we figured the better to get it on, and if it happens, great, and if it takes 2 years, then at least it's out there as a proposal that we could start looking at.
Okay.
No, and I agree, and I think there is some legs to this, I think, but you had no idea that there was a cap at 3A.
I did not know
Like
there was a
Mike asked the question, I had it too written down, what happens to the 7 remaining? With that said, because there is a 3A cap, maybe those 7 need to go back and be absorbed back into this rotation. Need to take a look at this. Also, you are aware that the North has no 4A. They're all 5A. So
Right.
this would restructure the whole entire, you're changing the whole dynamic, hang on, Carl. You're changing the whole dynamic of the realignment of what we've worked extremely hard for in all these years. So, and I agree with Rollins, maybe this is something that we can all take a look at, massage it, as we go forward. Go ahead.
No, I just want to make it more stable.
Tony, Foothill 45 South, that was my question was, would it be possible to absorb those extra teams into this format? And then, it's sports, you get the, sorry, you just don't qualify for the playoffs.
We can definitely absorb those other teams in.
Just
They can-
because again, my concern is that 3A knowing.
We could create a large playoff system for that bottom southern regional playoff.
And I also think that we need to bring the 4A, were you aware of this at all?
Art Anderson, I was not completely aware of this presentation. I can see the North benefiting from this, but also it's going to be an additional cost to the North if we're sending 4 teams from Washoe County down to Vegas, vice versa. If you guys have to send 4 teams up from Clark County to the North for the state tournament, I guess we could have some information on that as well. It's 2 additional teams to the playoffs, which benefits the North. I don't really have an argument against that. But
But we're also changing, like I said earlier, the whole dynamic of the realignment, because now we're creating,
100%, I agree with you.
you know, and I think that's, we need the North Rollins and Art, the North part of the conversation as well. I don't think it's time, and I agree, that we make that decision. I don't think we can make that
No.
decision based on this information, but it's worth the conversation.
Yes, Brett.
Brett Walter, private schools. I just wanted to point out two things. First of all, I think that the biggest plus to what they're saying is, you know, we all know that, I think it's been like 17 meetings this year or something like that. And it's a ton of work. And if there are some things that can be done in the future that make realignment an easier process, because it's every 2 years, I think the state benefits a lot by that and not having so much movement. The other side of that is, when we all started this sport by sport, the whole idea that was said over and over was to have more competitive games night in, night out. So the question is, what's the impact of this structure and these leagues, and how far is the difference between the bottom teams in these leagues versus the top teams? And are those uncompetitive games that are happening on a regular basis? And I think that as we take a look at that, that's something that should be considered. So you're not playing 2 or 3 games or 6 if you're playing them home and away that are totally uncompetitive. That's the other side of it. So maybe somebody could, you know, check some of those things out as they get to you know, when you actually consider the proposal. I mean, there's those two sides of it, the way I see it. Thank you.
So that's why we serpentine and we want to try and keep it as competitive and balanced.
Hey, going forward also, anytime you conduct a survey, if you could produce those results. You didn't put anybody under the bus today by saying that name the 2 schools that were opposed, but we always ask for results. If you could have, you know, because we've been told, hey, it's unanimous, then all of a sudden we have 5, 6 schools up here feeding. So,
I didn't say it was unanimous.
I'm not looking at you right now.
They changed.
I'm not-
I was at that meeting. It was unanimous. I was there. I saw
All
it
right.
at the meeting.
No, it's seen this year and prior years, but yeah, the survey results are very important. So thank you, Charlie. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, just look at from the 3A, we wouldn't have to move all 9 of those schools up, because we could absorb 16. So really, if there was 4 more teams one team to each league, that would get it under the 16 number. By just adding 1 more team to each league, that then gets us down to under a 16 in the 3A. I'm just saying that.
Sorry.
That could work is with the cap number.
I'm some sort of.
That would benefit the
Why
teams.
is there a cap for 3 days? I'm just.
because of the north, the number of schools in the north.
Okay.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Any further questions? All right, yeah.
I just have one committee, so should I wait till after I don't want to question folks around. Okay, but I guess Kevin McClellan, 45 South, I guess the concern that continues to come up is, when is the right time for proposals about structure, right? Like, we seem to have this all the time. People come up at here and we keep saying, well, this isn't the right time for it. So I think maybe as an organization, we can try to communicate that out of when is the right time for the structural changes.
That would be great, because I tried to do this middle of the year and it was too soon because the winter stuff was going on. And then I guess I missed the time to get this in. Great question.
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah,
Well, can I just say something? If you're looking, because your comment was the proposal for all sports. It probably needs to be sooner than later in the rotation, because if we're looking for fall, winter, spring, yeah.
Mr. Davis, and then I'll Jen answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson, Board Davis and I staff, to kind of help with Mr. McCarthy's question. Our tentative plan right now for the next realignment cycle is to not come in September and right away set a realignment committee with a big meeting of how we're going to do it. I've talked with Mr. Nelson about this, Mr. Anderson about this too, from the legal end of things. I would like to, from my position as the guy doing all the numbers, sit down with different groups when we get to the fall. What ideas do we need to keep? What ideas do we need to bring in new, so that we're not having a realignment committee convene 3 or 4 times next year, trying to formulate a plan and we don't really know what the plan is. We can get together with not just principals, athletic administrators, also get some coaches involved in that. What would you like to see us do and what's actually realistic to do? And then form that committee and bring it forward at that point. That's the current plan. If anybody's got ideas to help build on that, we're always welcome to listen.
And this is definitely an example of that. Donna?
Daniel, that's Mr. Davis said exactly what kind of mentioned right earlier in the start of the realignment cycle, that I truly see the next realignment process and maybe the outcomes of that process being different than where we are right now. And so we don't want to write policies and procedures until we get a head start on all things just like this. Principal Wickerman, thank you for bringing it forward as being representative, on an administrative level to be able to do that. Coach Sharon, thank you for your group of getting together and thinking, long term, what maybe happened. And Mr. Carlin, you got the bombastic side eye right here. Thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, good. And I'll show you my budget, my travel budget.
All right.
$500,000 a year travel budget.
Next.
Went up.
So, yes, so next will be, let's go page 28. This is our reviews for, appeal baseball to go from 4A to 5A, our review 4A to 5A. And again, to go back, if you need to, when you reference page 28, you can use page 19. 19 is the rubric points. And page 11, I know you might have to take some pages out or mark some pages, you might have to jump back and forth, but again, page 11 is the current alignment. And when you look at that, you can see where our review is in the class 4A, currently aligned in the Desert League. They're appealing to go to the 5A Southern region. That open spot will be in the Desert League. And then the rubric points on page 19. So with that said, our review will have 3 events as a school presenter, and Mr. McFarland, are you designating? Or are you going to go?
You want to go to the podium?
Yes, sir. I think that's
Okay.
the hat spinning, right?
All right, hand up there.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, Kevin McFarland, principal at Arborview. As I have in the letter, I won't kind of belabor the point, but Arborview is one of those right on the bubble. We understand why the decision was made. We traditionally are very competitive in the 5A. We had a one-off year. Changes were made in the program. We finished the year extremely competitive, and I wake up in the morning and just want to beat Coach Cerrone. So let's get this to 5A. So, but anything, if there's any other questions from what's in the letter, I'd be happy to answer.
And this was spearheaded by your baseball coach? Was this?
Correct. Baseball coach, athletic administrator, athletic director.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And President, our Chair Stallworth in this case, that's why I think we all appreciate a principal. We love our athletic administrators, we love our athletic directors, really appreciate our coaches, but it's always wonderful when we have a principal take the podium, because that way we know it's been vetted through the entire school.
Yes.
That's the spokesperson.
Thank you.
Hey, Roland.
Yes.
Hey, Ray Parks. I just want to ask Kevin if he used the word unanimous in his coaching meeting.
It was unanimous in my school. It continues to be unanimous. Yes, thank you, Mr. Parks.
Thanks, Ray.
Mr. Davis and then
Mr. Davis.
Mark Davis and our staff, as the committee will recall, when we had the meeting a week ago, Mr. McFarland was the one who deferred to me as to where to draw the line. Harborview was on just the bottom edge of that line. If you look at the rubric numbers, they were up 20 points this year last. They're sitting at 12 when we put 11 in the 5A. The past, when we've done these appeals with somebody going up, it's all gone one way. Yes.
Yeah, I think again, 3,200 kids, the resources that it's worth 5As.
Thank you very much. Good. Yes, Anthony.
I was gonna make a motion that we approve our reviews appeal to the 5A division in baseball.
We have.
What I'd like to do, with all due respect, is hear all the appeals first. I want to make sure people understand the grand picture of school by school, where schools want to go and how it may all interact or not. That's okay, so I appreciate it.
Sorry, new guys.
Yeah, that's what my coach I think we need to be careful about. I mean, somebody wants to appeal to go up for God, but then we get into cap levels and stuff, which teams are we gonna take, and, trying to decide that issue, so.
So we'll do that at the end. Okay, Mike? Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, you're excited.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for Mr. Parlin? Okay, thank you, sir. All right, thank you. All right, turn your other hat back around. All right, we will go to page 29. This will be Cheyenne. Again, baseball appealing, in this case, from 4A to 3A, 4A to 3A. Cheyenne's appeal letter is on page 29. And again, referencing back to page 11, that is the league alignments that we set coming out of May 30th. And I know you see Cheyenne there in the Desert League 4A, again, appealing to the 3A. And then one more time, the rubric points on page 19, and after the appeal, I know Mr. Davis will mention those and reference them. With that said, Cheyenne, 3 minutes, and if you would please, for the record. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Nick Bear. I'm the athletic director at Cheyenne High School. Everything's pretty laid out in the email. But just I want to point just a couple of important factors. As far as our scoring goes on this rubric, we scored 53 points, which puts us at 9th of 12 teams in 3A. That is counting the schools that are not numbered in the rubric. They've been bumped down because of enrollment. And that puts us 32nd of 39 overall. So we are fairly competitive at 3A as it is. The last 2 seasons, we are 7 and 25 for those 2 seasons. I believe we belong in 3A. That's a place where it seems like we are just getting our footing. We've also had a tough break for COVID. We actually were not able to field a program that spring COVID year. We did not have enough players come out to fill the team. We're essentially starting from scratch as far as building a roster. We had 8 freshmen out of the 20-man roster. So almost half of our team is fresh. So we're working on rebuilding that. So I believe 3A is a place for us to stay and not get bumped up to 4A.
All right, committee questions first to start off with, then again, I'll turn to Mr. Davis to go over the rubric points, although Spare already addressed those and where they would stand with regards to the 3A and seeing where those points would go. But any questions from committee members?
Remind me, Cal Sergeant 3A South, I'm trying to remember, do you have a JV program this year?
Yes, we do have a JV program this year. We had to play juggle with some of the athletes.
Okay, that's your mind, that's right. We did play our 1 game JV varsity together, so we did have your team could.
Yeah.
Do the double game rule.
That's right. Yeah, we were able to fill the JV team. Our numbers are growing. Last year we had less than 20. This year we had 6 grades, eligibility, stuff like that. It was closer to 20. But yeah, so it's growing. It's on the way up.
Thank you. Mr.
Kevin McCollum, 45 South. Did we play games against current 4A schools this past year, past years?
Yeah, you're welcome to tag teams. It's okay. Yeah, if you just please, for the record, introduce yourself. So, yeah, thank you.
I'm Wade Smith. I'm the coach of Cheyenne High School baseball. We did play 4 4A teams, but they were the ones on the bottom set. They were Mojave, Chaparral, Del Sol, and Desert Lions.
And how did those games go?
We won 3 of these.
Thank you. Coach, you playing in 3A school?
What's that?
Did you play in 3A school?
Yeah, we were in the 3A.
Oh, you were
in the 3A.
And your record overall was 7 and 25, you said, in the 3A?
Yes, in the last 2 years, we were 3 and 7 and 3.
And did I hear you correctly? You won 3 out of the 4 games and 4 in the school.
Right.
Mr. Here's on those who've been non-league. Thank you.
Thanks. So on page 19, it shows that you guys were, and this is Cheyenne, you guys were 27, ranked 27, correct?
Well, that's not including the 5 teams below that are not ranked, that all scored higher than us as well.
The 5 schools that are in the.
So Boulder City, Walleye, Brumps, Slam.
That are in the 3A, those are 3A, traditional 3A schools that they're protected, so they can't come up, so we can't use those, and that's what our hands are tied as far as that's concerned, so we don't take that into consideration. So with the schools that, to me, it looks like you're smack dab in the middle of the 4A when you break up the 5A and separate the 5A from this list here. that you guys were right in the middle from a competitive standpoint in the 4A.
In the 4A. Okay,
Based on what we voted on.
yeah.
Okay, so, I think this is a very typical issue that we have with realignment is the protected 3A schools are protected, they stay down there, so the rubric points are the rubric points and they stay there. And then we move everybody else around them to make up the leagues. So when we look at this, we see Cheyenne as a middle of the road 4A school. Just looking at the numbers, and that's what we look at.
If you ignore 5 team scores.
Well, we don't ignore them. They're just traditional schools that have to stay there. I mean, enrollment protected schools, I should say.
So because they're enrollment protected, we get back to them into our position.
What was your question?
So the school that
Go
are
ahead.
protected. Go ahead.
The schools that are enrollment protected, their scores are shown for reference information. The teams that are listed from 1 through 34, those are the ones that are eligible for placement in either 3A, 4A, or 5A. Obviously, with some caveats in there that you can't move from 3A to 5A or 5A to 3A involuntarily during the course of the cycle. For the committee's reference, where we drew this line when we said everything last week was between numbers 30 and 31, Desert Pines and Chaparral, with everybody from Desert Pines upward going to 4A, all the way up to Harborview at that point. Chaparral, Canyon, Mojave, and Sunrise Mountain were the 4 schools that are eligible for placement based on a rubric score that were moved to the 3.
That will move there.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of where and that's why you ended up in the 4A based on that. And your rubric points show that you are 27th compared to some of those that were 34, 33, 32, or 31.
Yeah, we've also didn't make the playoffs either the last few years in 3A, and now you're telling me we would make the playoffs 4A. We're middle of the pack team.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments from?
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at the 4A, Dallas Larson 3A South. If Harborview gets a feel like they look, sounds like they might go up to 5A, and look at your league, it might be Park, Sector, Cheyenne, Valley. I mean, are those schools competitive schools for you and as a league?
Valley definitely is.
Okay.
Clark was already in our division 3. They got bumped as well.
Okay.
Like 5 or 6 of the 3A schools got bumped. So that would be a competitive division for us, I believe, 100%. Harborview, if they do go up, they're kind of the odd duck down there at 4A definitely. But the rest of the teams would be competitive. I've been told Sect is also really well manned, but I understand they're a new school. They've got to kind of earn their stripes, so to speak. So I completely understand them being 4A.
No, because no one in the 3A South told me, no, we don't want Cheyenne in. It was just, I don't know, but when I look, if you came in on the mountain 3A, or I believe that's where you were, was in the mountain of Crump, and or were you on the desert side? You were with us, so if I'm looking at just some of those games, are they more winnable just day to day, like you're talking about? Like, I understand those rubric numbers with the protected schools. So if you're playing Boulder, Crump, Slam on one side, or Mwapa, Virgin, who are the traditional schools on that side, I mean, are you more competitive in a 3A Desert League or in the 4A Desert League with Sector Cheyenne Valley? That's
the hope is always to have some sort of competitive balance, right? Be able to win games, maybe lose some, but grow the program. That's my main goal, is just be competitive. So it's very possible that we would be just as competitive in a 4A as we were in the 3A, because honestly, the 3A schools are tougher than some of the 4A schools because they're protected. But yeah, that would make, I believe it would be semi-competitive as well. Yeah. I mean, we're always going to try and compete. That's the whole thing.
Thank you. Any other questions for?
Okay. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, sir. So yeah, we'll circle back to all these on individual decision basis after we complete the baseball process. So with that, let's go to, make sure I'm going in the correct order here. Oh, I just skipped over one, I know. Oh, let's see if I can say. Desert Pines, I believe is next. Let me double check. Yes, Desert Pines, page 30, and appeal from Desert Pines baseball go from 4A to 3A, again, page 30 of your packet. And again, referencing page 11 is the league alignment that's set, and currently Desert Pines is placed in the 4A Southern Regions Mountain League, 4A Southern Mountain League. And the appeal goes pages 30 through 32. And again, the rubric points, page 19 for your reference as we go. So that said, Desert Pines, hi. For the record, please introduce yourself. Thank you very much.
Megan Booth, athletic director.
Thank you. Good to see you, Megan. Thank you.
I'm going to appeal on behalf of our baseball team this morning. So I'm just gonna read straight off the page because public speaking is not my thing. So the Desert Pines High School baseball team would like to challenge their placement in the 4A division for the 23-25 period. Our results over the previous alignment period showed a 6-32-2 record. When looking at our results against the proposed 4A alignment for the 23-25 period, our record is 122-2. We were outscored in 21-22 by a combined score of 172-22. And in 2022-2023, we were outscored 132-49. These totals show that we cannot be competitive in this placement. We continually have the roster of multiple players who have little to no baseball experience. This placement further puts baseball at Desert Pines in jeopardy and creates a scenario where these players are overmatched and have a greater risk of injury. If placed in 3A, these players would have a better chance of filling improvement and a lesser chance of injury. This was shown during the previous alignment period when competitive against the lower 4A and 3A teams that we played against. And looking at just the teams that will be placed in 3A for the proposed alignment, we were 5-5 over the 2 years with a run differential of 95-93 against us. Below shows our scores, records, and totals over the previous 2 years against the teams that have been placed in the proposed alignment for the 23-25 school years. I'm not going to bore you with every single detail, but I do want to point out what is in bold. This is the record against the proposed alignment for the 23-25 school years. In the 21-22 school year, we had an overall record of 1 through 19. Record against 5A teams was 0-3 with 3 mercy losses. Record against 4A teams was 0-12 with a forfeit, 10 mercy losses. And then against 3A teams, we were 1-4 with 3 mercy losses. And then coming to this most recent school year, we had an overall record of 5-13-2. Our record against 5A teams was 0-2 with 2 mercy losses. Our record against 4A teams was 1-10-2 with 6 mercy losses. And our record against 3A teams was 4-1 with 4 mercy losses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. All right, realignment committee, questions?
Kevin McCarthy, 4-5 South, I guess just kind of going back to what Mr. Larson said, I mean, the 3A isn't a soft spot to land necessarily, right? And so, I mean, looking at the teams that you would be in the division with at the 4A versus where you would fall in the 3A, are those a more competitive division for you? Or, I mean, I don't know, maybe I can turn it over to you, Mr. Larson.
No, this is Spring Valley petition go 5. Did I see that Spring Valley petition go 5A? Yes. So Durango, Doral, Desert Pines, I don't know who would fill in those other 2.
Well, the whole thing will be researched.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess
Most of it's actually done already.
And so I just kind of wonder, like, your record against your in and out competition in that 4A league versus if you come into the 3A mountain or desert. I just don't see if there's a change on either side of that, I guess. The best school in the 3A and it's probably, you know, one of the top or second in the top of the 4A right there, it looks like from. So I just wonder if you look at the schools you're gonna play in the 4A and all those are games we can win, those are games we can't win, and they look at 3A, oh, that's a game we can win, but those ones we can't win. Did you balance that between the 3 and the 4 to make this decision?
I personally am not the baseball coach. I am here in support of them. I think a lot of our argument is gonna be really similar to Cheyenne. Mostly, we understand the protected school status, but we don't necessarily agree with it and believe that we should be in the 3A.
And one more, sorry, Dallas Carson with the Gray South JV squad. Did you have JV left? This coming year, does it look like you might or might not?
I'm really hopeful. Make my job.
Good answer. Anthony?
Yeah, Tony 45 South, to reiterate what Mr. McFarland said, not that it's 3A disrespect, but the top 2 or 3 teams in 3A would have been very competitive in 4A baseball. Because we were 4A, we're obviously moving up in the next realignment cycle, but to reiterate that, and I don't mean disrespect, but the bottom of the 3A and the bottom of the 4A are the exact same league. I mean, it's very similar programs in the same, state currently. So, I mean, it's something to consider. I mean, you move them one way or another, is it gonna make a difference? Is my question.
Yeah, because in looking at this, if you look at the 3A league, those top 5 schools, they're gonna be up in the upper echelon if they're playing the 4A schedule. They would be there. I mean, that's what it is. They're protected schools, they're big schools, they play good baseball. We know that. What the realignment committee does is look at the bottom echelon, and that's where we have the appeals always come from, that bottom echelon of those teams that are on the cusp of going up and down, and we understand that. Our viewpoint and our glasses are looking at that those bottom 4 or 5 3A school or 4A schools. How do they compete with the bottom of echelon of the 3A schools that are in there? And if that's pretty close to the same, you need to stay in 4A based on your population and everything else. That's how the realignment committee looks at that. And so, if we're in a perfect world and everything was all rosy and all that, the Boulder cities, Milwaukee, they'd probably all be up in the 4A. But we don't have the power to do that this particular time, so that can't happen.
When is the power?
Well, you got to come to us at the next realignment committee meeting, but I don't know when that's gonna be. I'll be playing golf somewhere on a Saturday afternoon doing that. But the reality here is that unfortunately, the most difficult part of our realignment committee is those bottom echelon teams in schools in every single sport that feel that they can't compete. And it really comes a lot from the bottom of the 4A, which is unfair, and then the 1 or 2 teams that are placed in 5A in some cases. And I feel bad for you. I understand. I do. But I don't know necessarily, I think Anthony was bringing it up, or somebody over here brought that up, that the record against on this list here, the records and how you compete against, say, Cheyenne on down to 34 Sunrise Mountain is really the key of where you belong. We think that's where you can compete at. That's where you should be able to play at based on the rubric points, because all those points are all in there together.
Thank you.
So that's where we're at. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, my co-charge liaison, I think it comes down more to perception, outside perception.
Yeah.
The perception is, again, that, 5A, 4A is gonna be a ladder deal, with 5A is gonna be competitive, 4A and so forth. Okay, but we all know, as ADs and principals on the committee, that's not the way it's always gonna play out. So, again, I think we have to leave it to the schools to make their appeals and presentations, based on, they have to pick where they want to do that. We can't do that for them. If they've already been, aligned into a certain class, then certainly we take that into consideration upon their appeal. But if somebody isn't here to appeal that may be below them, I don't think that appeal should be negated necessarily.
Because they weren't here.
Because that school chose not to appeal. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, I had a question. What is your current enrollment?
It's about 3,400. It's pretty large.
Tony Foley, 45A South. I know this was a concern a few realignments ago. If you're in the 3A, that puts your children on buses a lot longer than you are at the 3A. Is that a concern at your school? Because now you're a 2-hour bus ride to Pahrump or, hour and a half to Mesquite. Is that a concern? Because it has been with schools in the past.
I believe our coaches would rather have the bus ride.
Have a chance to wear.
That's
You're not getting to have a chance to win. The bus rides are the toughest ones to win. Exactly. Sorry.
Any other questions?
Any other
for
questions?
Yeah, no, sorry, Chris, once again, no one reached out to me to oppose either of these coming down. No one was in favor of it either. I do, what kind of what Mike was saying, that, there are schools here appealing, but the school that didn't appeal probably looked at that and said, we like that league. And now when we change it, it changes everything, and maybe that's like, oh, great, now. So it does cause a concern for schools that thought, oh, this is our league, we like it. But then when we change it now, it's like, oh, now that's a competitive game that we're not gonna have in our league, ouch. So,
There's gonna be a domino effect if anybody moves, regardless of a team going up or a team going down, and that's always gonna be an impact that we have to deal with. And those schools that aren't here, that are home thinking they're in this league and this conference and all that all could change based on what happens here today, which brings other problems up that only Donnie can handle.
Got good staff.
Okay, staff. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you, Ms. Cruz. Okay, we will advance on to page 33. Again, baseball appeal 4A to 5A from Las Vegas High School, again, as on page 33. And once again, the reference page 11 is where you see the alignments, and Las Vegas in the 4A Lake League currently, and your rubric points again on page 19, where you see Las Vegas ranked number 16. With that said, Franklin, Mark, welcome. The floor is yours for 3 minutes, sir. Go right ahead.
Mark Francis, assistant principal in Las Vegas High School. I'm also here with Ray Ortiz, our principal. He is in full support of us here as this appeal meeting today. So we're looking to go from the 4A up to the 5A, or remain in the 5A. We have a young team that's trending up. So we earned 15 more points than we did the previous year, and we doubled our win total. Also, of the teams that we played last year that were slated for the 5A, we beat 5 of those 7 teams. And as our young team continues to grow, 2 years ago, we were primarily freshmen and sophomores. This previous year, we were sophomores and juniors, and now we're continuing to grow and get older. So we want to make sure that we're competing at the highest level. And Coach Thomas is always very big on the east side. He just wanted to reiterate that he wants to make sure there's a team from the east side that represents the 5A. So that's one of his big things. And on one last note, we also want to beat Charlie as well. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. All right, any questions for Mr. Franklin on page 33, Las Vegas appeal, 4A to 5A?
Kevin from 45 South. So, the cutoff line was made at 11 and you're down to 16. So we brought up a bunch of teams.
Correct. That is a big jump. And we talked about that a little bit, but like I said, we're very young. We've gained a lot in the last 2 years. 2 years ago, we were pretty low. We gained it last year. And also we actually earned more points than Palo last year. So that's the reason we'd like to stay up in the fire.
All right, any other questions? So Davis, anything you need to impart, or I think we covered the rubric points on that, okay? Good. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. All right, and our remaining appeal in baseball Submitted today, committee members, handout. This is from Spring Valley. 4A to 5A, Spring Valley Baseball 4A to 5A. And once again, going back through our pages for reference. Our standings, I should have those page numbers memorized by now, right? So, you know, I know you all know where they are, but I'm gonna reference it for you real quick. Yep, page 11. Page 11 for the alignment. And page 19 for the rubric points. And Spring Valley is located in the 4A Mountain League at this time. That said, for the record, please, thank you.
The AD of Spring Valley High School, and we'd like to designate guest candidate to speak on our behalf.
And Ms. Bunting, if you would also just for the record, please.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Jeff Gibbs. I'm the head baseball coach at Spring Valley High School. The rubric points, you know, as you can see, we're pretty low there, but we did trend up this year. We're 5 points higher this year than we were last year. The past 2 seasons have just been a total product of being extremely young. We had freshmen and sophomores on the field for 2 years. Prior to that, if you look at 2019, we earned 95 points, more than many current 5A schools that year. Green Valley, Coronado, Foothill, to name a couple. We started off 4-0 in 2020, the year of the pandemic. We had a senior loaded team. We were going to have a very, very good team that year when the season was canceled. And we spent 2 seasons, the last 2 years, earning points with predominantly freshmen and sophomores on the roster. We believe we'll be very competitive in the 5A division for the next 2 years. And would like to give the players the opportunity to play the best competition available. Last season, although we didn't win very many games, our young team was very competitive against top 5A schools all year with wins against Cimarron, Rancho, Desert Oasis. We lost a 1-run game to Faith Lutheran, a 1-run game to Centennial. We were in a 1-run game with Arborview and had many other very close games throughout the year. According to Max Preps, there were only 5 teams in the state with a stronger strength of schedule than ours as well, which were Mormon Basic, DO, Faith, and Coronado. That's all I have.
Thank you, Coach Bianca. Appreciate it. Committee members, any questions for Coach?
It is rewarding to see teams coming up, wanting to go up that are kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of the rubric.
Absolutely. I think our kids will benefit way more than the ones that are moving their way into being upperclassmen. I think will benefit a lot more from playing in 5A than 4.
Appreciate it. Yes,
Now starts on 3A South. This is more, I think that's kind of where the rubric points kind of, like you say, freshman, sophomore scored those points. And now he's saying that junior, seniors, man, that's really going to help. So that's where the not that it is what it is. But you know, going back, we can change that now, but that new system might be nice to look at in the future to help what's going on now. And then, so I'm looking at Wappo Valley's rubric points. I just happen to notice with Las Vegas, we have 79 this year, and Las Vegas had 78, but they beat us 15-0 this year. And I'm like, so sometimes I'm looking at how did we get more rubric points in Las Vegas when they were a much better team than we were? So that's kind of, so the rubric point might be a little off on that. So.
I think you can see, notice a lot of teams that are lower than us in rubric points just by a little. You know, we beat a team this year that was in the state finals. You know, so in 5A, different way to look at it.
Yeah.
Sessions. Tony from Foothill. I know in the past we've played Spring Valley every year since I've been at Foothill, and those have always been real great competitive games. Same with Vegas. I mean, we play them every year, and those are always really good games, regardless of classification.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, committee. So what we'll do, so we're gonna go, we're gonna wrap up baseball here. We're gonna go back to.
Baseball. Are there any other baseball schools that we did not mention or were not on the agenda that are here to appeal? Okay.
Going once, going twice? Okay.
Okay.
All right, committee, let's circle back to page 27, and this was and Donnie Nelson the staff, and I'll make the comments this. I really appreciate the comprehensive proposal delivered on behalf of the Coaches Association and the way it's outlined. And I think we, as staff and coaches representatives and including a principal or a few principals, we've had communications about this. It is something that, I think I've mentioned starting back in the fall and reiterated through the winter process that things could be different. And the goal is to get groups on a sport by sport basis together early in this upcoming school year to look at setting some ideas of what do you want, what can realistically work before we even write policies and procedures so we can entertain things like this. With that said, I don't know how we can even consider this. It doesn't fit within the policies and procedures that govern our process. Football, we went through a process, and as you remember, we took 2 or 3 extra meetings to revise a process for a sport. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we did that. To entertain this, that would take the same kind of action. I'm not saying time is of the essence, but this would take a multifaceted revisitation of a process to be able to consider this on page 27 for baseball.
And the difference would also be the aspect of the softball, baseball combination that could be played very close to the same, whereas football was a single sport that was up by itself. So I think this definitely has some merit to it as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, so that's it. If the committee wanted to direct ourselves to go back and revisit that can happen, but otherwise there would have to be a motion to table baseball, I guess it's in its entirety to start over. If there's not that, then we don't consider page 27, and we go back to the individual appeals that we've just heard from the schools on a school by school basis. Anything on that?
Could this committee make a recommendation for the next realignment cycle to make sure this gets visited? Like, hey, this is a recommendation we want the next committee to make sure they've met with, or with the groups. Could we make that a recommendation for that?
Don Nelson staff, I would say you don't need to do that. I think we understand that this is something we're going to look at. Yeah, I don't think that that's necessary. And I don't know within this process, actually, considering that would really be directing a whole nother committee, which we don't know yet, and a whole nother process 2 years away. I don't think we can do that with that committee under a consternation of here's what you need to do. I almost think that's almost like a guidance. I don't think that would be, I appreciate Dallas, because again, there's right, we're going to talk about this. This is really interesting. And this concept is floating out there. But I think it's the next group get started.
I think it just makes what Kevin said, when is the right time and all that. So I just, going forward,
I can answer that.
Wanting to make sure that, the different ideas get looked at going forward before we get to this point.
Yeah, again, guys from the staff, the next time going forward is when we start this next school year, before we even create policies and procedures to get these groups of coaches in the different sports together between the north, south, west, and east. So, yeah, that you will see that. You will not see policies and procedures set in the fall to govern the next cycle that quickly. It can't happen when we need to look at proposals like this. There's merit to it. So with that said, any other committee member want to direct us to on page 27, or we go past it if otherwise? Okay, then we go past them. Thank you. Again, it's just we're headed in a direction which should be very entertaining and interesting in the next cycle. All right, page 28. Arbor View. Committee, need a motion, or it fails if we don't have motions. Again, for Arbor View to go from 4A to 5A. Baseball, page 28.
25 South, like to make a motion to approve Arbor View's appeal from 4A to 5A.
Good. We have a first. Do we have a second?
Sharp Simons 2A South, my second motion.
We have a second. Are there any other further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Make note of abstain. I think you should. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to abstain. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. McFarland.
Thanks.
Let's make sure we note that. I appreciate that very much.
Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye. We already did that.
We're good.
Good, next.
Okay, passes. Our review will be be 5A, going to 4A class. All right, page 29, Cheyenne, 4A to 3A, page 29. Is there a motion to approve? Going once? Twice? Okay, it will fail for lack of a motion. I'll write that down in 1 second. Let's add it like 37. Okay, page 30, Desert Pines, Peel, 4A to 3A in baseball. Page 30. Is there a motion, Desert Pines, 4A to 3A baseball? Once. Twice. Okay, chair will fail for lack of a motion. Second, note that. All right, page 33, Las Vegas, 4A to 5A in baseball, page 33, Las Vegas.
Ron Gerzon, 4A, 5A South, I motion to accept Las Vegas as the field to go from 4A to the 5A.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Anthony has a second. Thank you. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Okay, and one more for baseball, Spring Valley, 4A to 5A. This was again, the handouts, not in your packet. Spring Valley, 4A to 5A baseball.
I'll make a motion, Chuck and Simon 2A South to approve Spring Valley baseball 4A to 5A.
Ms. Simons, we have a motion. I have a second.
Ron Gerzon, 4A, 5A South, I second.
Thank you very much. We have a first and a second. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye. Oh, excuse me.
Are we under the number for 5A? Make sure we're not exceeding.
No number for that.
There's no cap for 5A.
There's a minimum, there's.
A maximum, okay. So
All right, thank you.
I'll make sure.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Okay. That wraps up baseball, and I know we'll have lunch delivered at some point, but I really want to keep plugging away. I appreciate everybody being in attendance. We have a lot of people, and I hate to take a break at this point, and it's already here. And it's sandwiches. We're fine. Let's go. We have a lot of people here, and I really want to pursue it. So, all right, we will go then to track and field. And track and field, we're going to operate this a little bit differently. We're going to hear a comprehensive motion first. Let me give you the background real quick here. So page 16, boys track and field alignments that came out of our May 30th meeting. Page 16, boys track and field. Page 22 are the rubric numbers for boys track and field. So 16, the alignment, page 22, the rubric numbers. We need to tear them out, put them in front of you. What do you need to do? Girls track and field, page 17, alignment. Girls track and field alignment, page 17, that came out of May 30th. Rubric points for girls track and field on page 23. Page 23. We have a comprehensive proposal with regards to track and field that may or may not impact a couple of individual school appeals. And so a little bit different. And again, why I addressed that with baseball, not quite feeling like it fit within the policies and procedures. This, in alignment purposes, which was addressed with cross country in the fall, can be looked at as being something that this committee could take action on to do. And so I think it's, I'm gonna be real careful because hopefully I'm doing it the right way. And I know we have Mr. Anderson here, our legal counsel. I think we look at this comprehensive proposal first, and I actually think we take action on it first, because that may negate, some, if not all, of the individual appeals. And so it's a little bit odd. Mr. Anderson, do you think that fits within our process to be able to do that? For track and field, to do a comprehensive proposal first and actually look to vote on it before going to individual appeals? Oh, I want some guidance from you, please.
Other individual appeals impacted by.
Would be negated. Correct. There would be none that would be changed the other way. But again, but we'll ask that if there's anybody in the audience who would otherwise then appeal after that, that could still happen. But there's none that have been submitted that would be in response to that being, that would be negatively impacted by the approval of a mass proposal.
So those that are submitted would not be negatively impacted there.
Correct.
I think you can hear the comprehensive appeal, and what I would suggest is if you do the same as you did with baseball on the state, hear them all.
You would still hear them all, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If somebody's got an appeal, I think you need to cheer it.
Right, it's, my point was, I was gonna say, my point was, these appeals that come from individual schools after the comprehensive appeal, they wouldn't be appealing, I would guess. Because they relate to what the comprehensive appeal addresses on their behalf.
I'm suggesting though, is based on our policies and procedures with this committee. If they launch an appeal, then I mean, they can make that statement after for the comprehensive one. They can say they withdraw it or whatever, but I think that's how you should proceed. I don't think we should assume it.
Okay, agreed, okay. All right, thank you. So that said, then we will focus our attention on pages 36 through 40. 36 through 40, and this addresses the points. Page 38 is proposed alignment for Southern track and field teams 3A, 4A, and 5A, boys and girls together for 24-25 seasons. Page 39 addresses them in the rubric scoring format where you can see them. And then page 40 is the supplemental information with regards to roster sizes. So I believe Mr. Tyrell Cooper, I want to speak on behalf of CCSD, almost in essence, our coordinator of track and field in the Southern Nevada area, our meet director for region and state meets, Mr. Cooper. Thank you. And 5 minutes for you, sir.
Thank you. Mike has his hand up. I just want to make sure you got his question answered.
Go ahead.
Hold on.
Move forward.
Are you bringing this forward?
Mr. Carlin is going to bring back the swimming proposal.
So, I'm sorry, so.
Yeah, so Tyrell, as an athletic administrator, is permitted to bring forward on behalf of.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, thank you, Pam.
Yes, ma'am. So, my name is Tyrell Cooper, for the record. I'm the athletic director, administrator, and secretary for AM Plus Academy. But I'm here today serving as the Southern Nevada track and field coordinator, a position I hold with both Donnie's office and Pam's office. The Southern Nevada track coaches are looking to combine the genders of boys and girls track and field and align teams into the same region and or classification. For the 3 reasons that we have listed here. Track is a unique sport, unlike the other team-based sports. Track is usually considered an individual-based sport. In that our coaching staffs are shared between the boys and the girls. There are technically a boys coach and a girls coach on paper with like Pam's office or the different school districts, but schools have one hurdle coach, and that hurdle coach deals with both the boys and girls hurdlers. One sprint coach who generally deals with boys and girls sprinters. Having our teams linked and the genders combined allows those coaches and those kids to all be in the same place at the same time through the critical postseason meets at the end of the year. It also allows those teams to come together. Besides the coaches going through and working with both genders, the boys and girls teams in track and field are generally very close teams, and wanting to have both the boys and girls in the same classification, so both teams are at the same location to cheer and support for each other, is important. Postseason meets are also often held at different locations. Last year, the 4A regionals was split between Shadow Ridge, Foothill, and Liberty. This year, the 4A meets were held at Desert Oasis, but the 1, 2, and 3A meets are held. Moapa had it, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years. Boulder City was able to take it this year. So when a team is split between the 4A and 5A or between the 3A and 4A, they often have to make choices as to where their coaching staff is going to go. Do these coaches go with the boys out to Boulder City this year, and these coaches stay at Liberty High School for the girls this time. This is, while making life simple for coaches, and Bart and I had this talk, we don't want to make changes. just to make life easier for coaches, is really important to the kids as well. It's difficult for me as a hurdler to go and compete at the regional championships, the biggest meet of the year for me in hurdling, knowing that my hurdle coach is not even there to watch me and get me warmed up because he or she is in Wappo Valley with the 3A kids that day. Also with the scheduling of the 4A, currently we run our 4A state meet in conjunction with the 5A regional meet in the years that the bulk of the teams head up north for the state championships. This shortens the 4A season by 1 week. Our coaches would like to change that, so that way they can align their regional meets with everybody else's regional meets. And then the following year, when the 1, 2, 3, and 5As travel up north, we can hold a standalone 4A state meet down in southern Nevada as well. So that way teams aren't shortening their season by a week, which then adjusts the way that the meets that they're entering in the weekday meets and the way that they're running their kids over the last couple of weeks of the season. I won't use the word unanimous, but we have a solid agreement. I want to appreciate Kevin and Ron and Tony for being involved. Tony sat in on our track coaches Zoom meeting we had the other day and answered questions from the coaches about this process. I know Tony or Kevin and Ron have spoken to principals in multiple schools that are kind of on the bubble in this process here as we've gone through. The rubric that is listed, I've color coded for you guys, and then next to it, so it says the school, the number there is their combined boys and girls rubric score from the last 2 seasons. Next to that, in parentheses, is a boys and girls, so that tells you individually what rank their boys team is and what rank their girls team is. For the vast majority of teams, they were going to both be in 5A or both be in 4A. What this really does is aligns so that the 4A teams are both in regions. So I want to make sure that we know that while there are a few bubble teams, this addresses the appeals. El Dorado and Somerset Sky Point are both here today to make appeals. Those appeals have been addressed in this process. I won't read through all my math and everything. I mean, you have a chance to look through that as you go through. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have as we go through. I will bring up the last attachment that I put on there was roster size for the 3A. The 3A in the South is unique. Most of our teams are smaller charter schools or small private schools that only have that don't have a lot of kids. There are a handful. The rural Malapa is our prime example. We're a wonderful 3A school that has a big 4-rounded team. A lot of our teams down here in the 3A are not big, which is why we're asking to put more teams in there to try to balance out that size of the regional meeting. And my time is up.
You are right on time, sir. You are. Well done.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you for what you do.
No problem.
Seriously, you help the Southern not only attract the cross country because we rely on you to do the schedule. We commend you for that. Did you at one point conduct a survey?
So not a formal like Google survey, but through our coaches meetings, a lot of track is meeting. Luckily, Amplus is not postseason eligible this year. So at regionals and state, talking to a lot of coaches. We do not have a formal Google survey, but through emails of let me know if you approve of this. If I don't hear from you, I'm going to assume you approve of it. It's difficult with track. You know, we had state and then we had the last day of school and then I started to try to do this. So a lot of coaches have unplugged and checked out as they've gone through, which is why the teams that it affect, I rely on Kevin to speak with administration, and Ron and Tony as they've gone through those processes.
It would be going forward and if there were some survey results, I know that always helps the matter.
Yes, ma'am.
In regards to opposition, did you have were coaches concerned?
So El Dorado, who's here today, I initially had them in the 4A because it balanced everything out. But they made the appeal to remain in the 3 or to stay to go down to the 3A. They were a school whose genders were split. Their boys were a 3A team the last 2 years and their girls were a 4A team the last few years. So I made that adjustment on there. Somerset Sky Point is not opposed to what I'm presenting at all. In the initial placement you guys made last week, you put their boys into 5A, so they had an opposition as well. I spoke with Canyon Springs coaches who seemed to be more concerned that they were in 5A, not that the genders were being linked. And I know Canyon is here today as well. So They were unhappy that their teams were placed into the 5A based on the way that the rubric operates. In track, the rubric favors quality at the top and quantity at the bottom. So Canyon is not a large team, but the kids they have do very well. And so that's why their points put them up into the 5A there. So their argument from what I've heard from them is not that we're linking the genders, it's that they're placed into the 5A through the rubric scores. But I'll let them do their presentation when the time comes.
Okay, thank you.
Art Anderson, 5A, 4A North. Tyrell, thank you for your presentation. This to represent the North, and this is a mainly Southern issue, but the North completely has empathy for this situation, because I know if we were in the same boat, we had to split boys and girls track teams or swim teams later, it would be impossible because of the lack of coaches. So completely understand where you're coming from.
Thank you.
And to piggyback off of that, the North is already doing this, just.
Yes, if you don't have a 4A and you don't have 4A things, so yeah, you're either all 5A or you're all 3A.
So, you know, I mean, it's an unfortunate, in some cases, unfortunate situation where the girls team is really good, the boys team's not very good, but yet they're in the 5A.
And there are only a few of those things, as you look through the numbers, if you really get into it, there's only a few schools where there's a significant disparity between their boys and girls programs.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is really for staff. Do we have, because tennis we combine, correct, boys and girls, do we have a formula? Are we just doing this sport by sport when we choose to do this?
If you take it.
Yeah, go ahead, Barton, I'll follow up. Davis, go ahead.
Or Davis and I staff. Yes, tennis, we use what's called differentiation, the average score for each gender, and then combine those two. We've been doing that. Bowling, we also use a differentiation in average for the total pin averages for their boys and girls teams. So we can combine those. I worked with Mr. Cooper. When he showed me his proposal, we both went through, did the math to make sure we matched up what he's presenting here. We also did a differentiation from average and track. Turned out good.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're consistent.
So I mean, I will say in cross country, we went with just replaced one gender and then mirrored it, but that became quite the process of moving everybody around. So this year for this presentation, we just like to present that we accept them, that you guys accept them as combined, rather than placing all of the boys into one or placing all the girls in the other and then accepting the other. I'm ready for that. If that's the conversation that has to happen based on the TPP, I didn't give that to you for clarity's sake, but I'm ready for that math and conversation as well if necessary.
So this is the proposal here on page.
Yes, sir.
38.
Yes, sir.
So this proposal says that those are the 10 teams, girls and boys that will be in the 5A side.
Yes, sir. We chose 10, so that'll be close enough to the 9 anymore.
10 to match the 9. The 4A desert will have 11 teams, the 4A mountain would have 12 teams.
Yes, sir.
Girls and boys both the same.
Well, yep. So everybody's in the same place at the same time on the same day.
And then the 3A south, 15 schools,
15.
girls and boys together. And was there a handout with the actual votes of the coaches, or?
No, that's what Pam and I said. We did not do a formal, please click here survey.
Yeah.
Through all of my years in this position, it's very difficult to get, and I don't know how all other sports are, but a lot of track coaches, when the season ends, they are not checking that email for a couple weeks. Even cross country coaches, they're a lot of like, hey, we trust what you're gonna do, thank you.
And then the appeals today regarding track for either girls or boys track team is based in opposition of this or supportive?
No, the appeals by both El Dorado and Somerset Sky Point that are in your packet as well are addressed and rectified with this proposal. So if this proposal comes through, El Dorado and Somerset Sky Point would, I mean, I don't know if they'd still come up here, but we're solving their problem in this proposal here.
Mr. McFarland, if I would, let me jump.
I'm sorry.
Canyon Springs, however, does have an appeal, which would also be opposed to this. So we get to pay homage to what Mr. Anderson said. After we're done with this comprehensive proposal, we still need to listen to Canyon Springs.
Sure.
And then the two other proposals as well. So that, I understand what he was.
Yeah, so they'll, I think they would still, in case you guys say, no, this is not what we want to do.
Right.
Then you could align them.
Thank you.
that way.
My apologies.
No, Kevin McFarland, 4-5 South. So I am concerned about not having, what the votes were. And if you could help us, are there schools that were moved by your proposal that is different? I want to make sure we don't take a vote on something where a school was moved and maybe isn't aware because all they looked at was our initial placement of that. So are there schools?
Yeah, no one's going up. There's not a single school that, in that regard, that is going up. There are schools that are coming down because your proposal had more teams in the 5A than we are presenting here today. So there, a school like Desert Oasis. Desert Oasis's boys are the number 6 ranked boys team on the boys side only. This combined rubric has them placed as a 4A school. I've talked to both the AD and the coach at Desert Oasis. Like I said, all of the schools that are in the bubble, I've spoken to those coaches and have, if necessary, I can screenshot emails and text messages to you. In terms of a mass 62, well, we don't count 1, 2, and 1 and 2. So a mass, whatever this comes down to, 36 school survey, I do not have those results.
So, but the bubble school that had some movement from our initial placement to what you're proposing here, happened personally, you spoke to them, you have contact.
Yes, like I initially had Del Sol and Pinecrest Cadence going into the 3A because I feel the 3A should be a full 16 team to try to maximize the number of kids in the southern 3A region to mirror what the northern 3A region has, because a lot of our schools are very small here. Both Del Sol and Pinecrest Cadence asked to remain as 4A schools. El Dorado has to come down, which is why El Dorado, as the 31 combined school, has leapfrogged 32 and 34 to come down to the 3A. Yeah, nobody's being moved up to where they don't want to be outside of what you have already presented.
Okay.
So Canyon has their presentation on how they don't want to be 5A, but you guys have already placed both of them in the 5A.
Thank you for that clarification.
Rogers on 4A, 5A South. Rollins asked a question earlier, so just a point of clarification, Mr. Cooper. How many teams are in the 3A in your proposal, 3A South?
We have 15 teams proposed into the 3A here.
So what are the NAs, the last 5 teams there?
Those are teams that did not have rubric scores from the last 2 years because they were not members of either, when I looked at Democracy Prep in the Meadows, they were in 2A, and 2A does not keep a rubric score. And then when we looked at Cristo Rey, Mater East, and Pinecrest Stone Canyon, they were associate members of the NIAA, so they did not have rubric scores as well. Just like how M Plus Academy over in the 4A Mountain is an NA, we were associates last year, so we did not have any rubric points.
Yeah, thank you. And then one more, Donnie, you brought up a point about a facility. If this proposal is voted upon and subsequently approved today, will there be an appeal process?
No. No, that is the staff. Again, the responsibility is on our schools to know this now is the end of the process. And if any school thought there might be an odd movement that would otherwise affect them, they would have to be here. And that's why we'll ask the question before we exit track and field or any other sport. Are there any other final appeals in response to?
And I was certified my emails to the coaches, like we have, it said that in there. And then I know that all administrators got a copy of this last week and got a chance to go through. I haven't had any communication from coaches about this since we've been working on this together as coaches. They've known that this is coming for a while now. We even started talking about it last year. And then over the last, literally Bart compiled all the 2023 rubric scores on Sunday night. And by Tuesday morning, I had this out to all the coaches. So they've had this in their email for 3 weeks now.
Absolutely. And you've been very clear with communication. I commend you on that, Mr. Cooper. I was just asking a question to edify the group here today.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Mr. Guzan, Donnie Nelson, the staff, I do want to make sure one thing is clear. The Board of Control has the ultimate authority to approve the realignment process. And even though there wouldn't be an opportunity for a school to appeal at the board meeting, any school could always make public comment, and the Board of Control could always take action and say, you know what, we still want to do this on our own accord before we approve the entire measure.
I'm very confident. I mean, besides the 3 schools that have been over here today, that you will not have that issue.
Coming from 4-5 South, if needed, whether during lunch or I can contact those principals of the schools that moved down from our initial placement if we deem that needed.
I could be wrong. If you think we need to hold this for that after lunch, I wouldn't plan on that.
I don't think so, but I'm sure you know, he's got his emails and stuff. And
Yeah, like I said, the schools that have gone down, I've spoken to coaches, and I know like we joke, and Kevin and I were joking earlier that most principals don't even know how many kids are on their track team and how many kids qualify to state. This is not girls soccer, football, basketball, or baseball. So, we as a coaches group try to stick together and become unified with that, and that this is what's best for both our kids and our coaches. And honestly, as the meet director for the Southern Regional, this is easy for me because everybody's in the same place and they're not having to enter their kids online into multiple places, oftentimes incorrectly.
Any other questions?
Dallas Larson, 3A South, just, so I'm looking on page 39, the 4 teams you had in the bubble were Cadence, Valley, Del Sol, Bonanza.
Correct.
So Bonanza was gonna be a 4A school in both boys and girls initially on our proposal.
On your guys' proposal?
Page.
The only team coming down on our initial proposal was El Dorado in girls. That was the only thing that was gonna be a 3A above the 12.
Yes, so you guys had less teams in the 3A than what I'm proposing here and what the coaches are behind here. And that, like I said, many of our 3A schools are very, very small track programs. And that's the last page of this proposal shows you, and this is just roster sizes out of register math. This isn't how many kids they entered. I mean, I have time, but I don't have that much time. So this is the number of kids on the roster. And you'll see even with 15 teams in Southern Nevada, you get down into those small charters and some of the small privates, and it's 30, 40 total kids compared to many of the programs in the north, which have, 60, 70, 80 that are more in line with what we see out of like Moapa, Boulder, and Pahrump and Virgin with those.
I agree. My question is more, did Bonanza, you talked to Bonanza about them going from 4A to 3A?
No, Bonanza was one I could not get any response from, but I had them in 3A in my proposal all along.
And Del Sol, you talked to them, they wanted to.
Their coach has to stay in 4A.
Valley is one that moved down.
Couldn't get a response from the coach. Pinecrest, Cadence, and Del Sol asked to be up.
Okay.
Couldn't get a response from Del Sol, or sorry, from Valley or Bonanza.
Okay. And then El Dorado moves down because Pinecrest Valley, or
Correct.
Pinecrest Del Sol chose.
Yeah,
to move up.
and El Dorado wants to be down. I initially had El Dorado up, but El Dorado would like to be down, and in order to keep this rubric or to keep this presentation where we're not gonna have the fights, and we have no problem. Coaches don't have a problem with that. El Dorado's boys were one of the last 4A teams, and their girls were the last team because they posted 0 2 years ago.
Dallas Larson, track is one of those weird, it's individual, but team as well.
Correct.
I've seen, like I said, Women's Faith Lutheran had 8 boys, they tied at state with 8 boys.
Yeah, and again, when you get to the top, it's quality. So you could win state with 7 or 8 really talented kids that are in 2, 3, or 4 events each. When you get to the bottom of the rubric, a school like Moapa does really well on the rubric because you have a large team and you fill all those lanes. And most of the other schools have 20 or 30 total kids, and they just don't have the volume of kids to fill all of those lanes. Plus, your coaches do great, your kids are solid athletes.
Well, like I can point to like our girls program that has done really well in the southern region because of our numbers, but at state, we finished way below the teams that finished 2nd, 3rd, or 4th in region because we don't have, like you're saying.
Correct, yeah, when you get to state, it's all about quality individuals, not the volume of athletes.
So this is one of those sports where I feel there is a balance there between, man, they take that one kid, 3,000 kids at a school, and they find that 1 or 2 kids that could really.
Yeah, the rubric every week. Yeah, the coaches plan to, whenever this, at the next meeting, as we're always told to present, they would like to look at reevaluating the way the rubric is done. Because they have some concerns with it as well, but the rubric is only written for regionals only. So that's the only data that we have. I could go through and look at all of these schools and tell you based on attending a track meet every Saturday, these 10 should be 5A, and it wouldn't look like this. But we have to go off of this.
Just a consideration, it's just a unique sport, I feel. I think I brought that up at the last meeting with the uniqueness of it, that it's just one of those 3A where it just takes to really throw off the balance of even team scores for just 1 or 2 kids that can be out of 3,000. It's always a concern.
Well, you can also say 1 or 2 kids from the school that has 29 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, the fastest girl in the state of Nevada this year in the distances came from a 1A school.
Who was that?
What's
that
that?
a-
Say, Donnie, I don't know her name. She ran 4:51 in the mile and state. Save
Was that a 5A school year before or something?
I don't know anything about it. I don't spend a lot of time hanging out with about track.
I don't know. I was told she was at a bigger school than he did.
This along with CCSD transportation be all over this.
Would be all over this?
So,
I don't think it has that much of an impact.
no, because there's no B track schedule. Track schedules are written pretty much geographically. So we don't keep league standings or anything like that. So no matter who's in the 3A, those schools don't like have to go out to Boulder, Virgin, Wapping, and Pahrump every year. It's only the travel to regionals that is where you have to go somewhere.
And then Sean Simon's face out. Will there still be room for 1A, 2A schools? You know how like at our school, we piggyback on some of these, I mean, these larger classifications, you still have room for our.
Yeah, when I write the track schedule, I try to write it with 1 or 2 schools from each classification all the way down. Okay. So that way that meet is balanced and it's not putting Lincoln County to meet with Palo Shadow and Liberty and your kids are.
And you always do a great job doing that. Just want to bring it up. Thanks.
Yes, Kevin.
Kevin from 45 South, just for everyone's now, Bonanza High School is very much okay with being in 3A, even though there were 4 in the initial and this has them in the 3A. The principal has responded. That is good with it.
Thank you, sir.
And that's from the track coach or the principal? Okay, thank you.
Right, any other questions for Mr. Cooper?
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cooper, appreciate it. All right, with that said, then let's go, we have a handout from Canyon Springs. And Johnson, right? Just want to clarify something after you've introduced for the record, if you would please, on the opening paragraph. I want to make sure I'm not reading this right. Just say from 4A to 5A. My understanding is this boys and girls programs from 5A to 4A. Correct? Both boys and girls. Okay, thank you. So with that said, for the record, please introduce yourself. Ms. Johnson, and we've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you all. I'm Tanisha Johnson, the athletic administrator and representative of Canyon Springs High School. I'm here before you on behalf of our administrative team, with the full support of our principal, Mr. Marcusic, and our track and field program. I come to appeal the decision to move our track and field program from 4A desert division to 5A desert division due to equity concerns. Over the years, Canyon Springs has proven successful in the spring events. However, last year was our first time in 19 years to actually win state in the division 4A, in the 4A division. I bring data to illustrate a clear picture of our athletes' of performance. Looking at the scores from the state, one can clearly see our boys track and field still failed to compete at the 5A division level. As I compare the 4A regional qualifying standards to that of 5A regional qualifying standards, our boys track and field rank well below other track and field programs. I mainly focus on our boys track and field program because they are the reason for our movement. Our girls track and field program will rank as a bubble team, coming in at 10th place. Unfortunately, our students are still struggling from the effects of COVID, and I'm sure many other schools are still feeling the effects as well. However, many of those struggles impact students from a lower socioeconomic community more adversely. However, leaving our student athletes in more disadvantaged situations, which is no fault of their own. Many of our student athletes must work to help them to contribute to their household or take the responsibilities of younger siblings on a much grander scale, thus interrupting practice and or participation time. For example, although we made it to state in the 200-meter event, our 2 athletes were unable to participate due to one having to work and not being able to take off, while the other one having an unforeseeable family crisis in which his parents had been missing for days, was not able to attend. Additionally, in the 19 years of our program's existence, we consistently struggled to build our program to match the numbers of many other suburban schools. With that said, we still managed to begin with a squad of about 40 to 45 students and maintain a level of healthy competition. However, should our track and field program move up to the 5A division, we will struggle more to keep athletes in what would appear to be a losing program, both individually and on a team level. Please do not take my reasoning for an appeal as excuses, but instead understand that A majority of our student athletes, due to circumstances outside of their control, cause them to juggle multiple responsibilities outside the normal academic day. As athletic administrator, I want to create the best situations to help and support our student athletes reach the next level to better their circumstances, thus breaking the unfortunate cycle of disadvantage and poverty. As I come to a close, as if this board align the same grades given to our football and basketball programs and keep our track and field program at the 4A division. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ms. Johnson. All right, committee members, questions for Canyon Springs? Again, 5A to 4A track and field. And that's boys and girls. So again, just to clarify, both will be together.
So is this an appeal based on the proposal we just heard, or just based on where they should be?
Based on where, Ms. Johnson, just based on where they should be.
Where they should.
Right, because if the comprehensive proposal were to be adopted, Canyon Springs' appeal would still exist because the comprehensive proposal has Canyon Springs in the 5A. So regardless, this has to be considered anyway. Once we're done,
One way or the other, regardless to which one, are they in the 5A based on our rubric?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
They're in the 5A based on our rubric. Where's that at? I want to see that.
Sure, so,
What page is that?
so for boys track and field, your rubric numbers are on page 22. 22 for rubric. And boys track and field, Canyon Springs is at number 5. For girls track and field, rubric points on page 23. And Canyon Springs is number 10.
So boys, that's 5.
Yes.
And girls number 10, that is correct.
In the 5A.
That's correct. Well, again, boys is placed in the 5A
Yes.
based on the action
On
of
those
May
points,
30th, based on those points. That is
They're 5.
correct. That's correct. You can see that on page 16 for the boys. And then you go to page 17 is the girls track and field alignment. And you see also again, girls track and field Canyon Springs placed in the 5A Southern Regions Mountain. So this appeal is still valid no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't have to decide on this, but we will be to bet the second, but we will have to decide on it after the comprehensive proposal anyway. It won't matter. Yeah, there's still, the appeal still be the same. I don't want to jump to the other two appeals, but when we do, those are in relation to the comprehensive proposal, but we'll still go through them just for its due diligence. So any other questions for Ms. Johnson? Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
So I just want to make sure, so, because, thank you for being here. So your appeal was already in place because you were going to appeal both sports anyway, both boys and girls anyway.
Yes.
Regardless to the new one that came up or the one that we placed in with the realignment commission.
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that the numbers from the rubric show that you're pretty solid 5A program in the boys.
I understand that, and that is actually based off of 1 to 3 young men.
Very good.
Oh, here's my code.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna let him.
Yeah, coach, for the record, please introduce yourself if you would for us. Thank you.
I'm Brad Alexander. I'm the girls track coach at Canyon. And in answering your question, part of the numbers are kind of skewed because we won state last year as a boys track team. First time in 19 years.
Yes.
All right, we won state. However, when you look at the numbers, the big drop off this year, we went back to where we have been in years past, which is really down the bottom, middle of the pack, because there's a misnomer that Canyon is really fast with all the athletes. We're a school that has not, prior to last year, had not won an individual sprint, state sprint title, other than the only time we won one was 2014, we won 300 hurdles. 2015, we won the 110 and 300 hurdles. From that time to last year, we had won nothing. And in most cases, a lot of times we weren't even in the finals. What we won was a lot of relays, 4x1, 4x2. That does not make you a strong team. That means you put 4 kids together and you ran a relay. That does not put you at the top of the list. And this year we struggled with qualifying kids at the 4A level. if we can't get them qualified at the 4A level, how are we gonna get them qualified at 5A? I mean, when I say that, the qualifying times, and I think you all see the paper here. We have that, I mean, we're talking the 4 kids on the 4x4, or the 4x1, 4x2, they're the ones that qualify in any sprint. Then other than that, we getting nobody. We don't have 800 runners, we don't have 1632. So it's a misnomer to think that we are this powerhouse. Because yes, the sprints, the 4x1 and 4x2 are the sexy events. Everybody likes those, and you know, and it looks good and flashy, but it's not by any means saying that we're a powerhouse.
And I understand that, and most track coaches that would say the same thing. My guess would be that if I'm looking at the boys rubric, Canyon Springs is 5th. My guess is that Desert, Oasis, Palo Verde, Centennial, all of those schools that are currently in the 5A could and would say the same thing, that we don't have the sprinters, we have X, Y, and Z, and
You know, they have the other 16, 17 events. They have what they have across the board events, which we just don't get with our social economic situation. That's just kind of what it is. Regardless of what our numbers are as a school population, when you look at the other issues that we deal with to get kids out, that's a whole different matter.
But let me interject real fast, because I understand what you're saying. And if we look at our state results this year, we came in first in the 110 hurdles for boys. But if we were in 5A, we would place 5th. If we were, right, this is during in 100 meters, we were 2nd in 4A, but in 5A, we would have been 7th.
yes.
200 and 400, we would have qualified at all. 300 hurdles, we would have qualified in 9th in 5A. So even though we look good in 4A right now and strong with our 3 boys that we have, 5A, we're still not competitive. We still would be a losing program. We have always been a healthy competition at 4A.
And you've been 4A the past 2 years?
Yes.
You've been 4A the past 2 years?
Yes.
And have won when?
We just, last year was.
Last year?
Right.
Last year you won it. And because of those rubric points in winning for 4A, you're rewarded with, unfortunately, going up to the 5A.
Yeah.
And you're comparing your 4A times with those of the 5A, with the 5A times from this year. But our rubric points don't do that. We base everything on what you just did, and we're gonna move you over based on rewarding you for doing what you've done and moving you to the 5A. I understand where you're coming from, because track is one of those, every 100-yard dash is 100 yards, and everybody has that time, and you do that. You know, I understand where you're coming from a little bit, but you've at least, I'm hoping, earned the right to be in the 5A based on the production and what was done this past year, and a little bit of what was done the previous year to keep you where you're at. I mean, that's how we look at it as a realignment committee. Now, again, your request is that you want to go from where we placed you from a 5A to the 4A. But I think on both proposals that are out right now, they both have you in the 5A. That's where we're at. Okay. Okay, I just want to be clear on that.
Any other questions from committee members? Or Ms. Johnson or Coach? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to page 41. And this is El Dorado's petition for boys track and field El Dorado to go from the 4A to the 3A. The comprehensive proposal does have El Dorado's boys track and field team being in the 3A. If the comprehensive proposal will not to be approved, this petition then would have to be considered. So with that said, Schlesinger, Adam, good to see you. Sir, if you would, for the record, introduce yourself, please, and you've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'm Adam Messing, I'm the athletic director at El Dorado High School. And I'm here to petition for our boys to go down to 3A. One of the other reasons why we want to go down to 3A is because our girls will be in 3A as well. And what Mr. Cooper's proposal actually worked out very well for us. Because we would be together. And I remember 2 years ago, Wappa Valley, I spent 1 week in Wappa Valley, got COVID and strep throat. And then the next week, 2 weeks later, I was actually at Liberty for 4A too. So I know that having coaches there together, because we're not a big school, we may have 4 or 5 coaches for both of our teams. And for us, that's a huge thing. If we have to split coaches, we're not gonna have coaches in one and coaches in the other. So how do you equitably, I don't know, how to become an issue too, if you think about it, to go ahead and have coaches. In regards to our runners, we had, according to RMA Activate, we had 45. Towards the end of our season, we had 35 due to kids not being eligible all year and the kids who just quit after the first meeting. Out of those 35, we had 4 boys that made state. And of those 4 boys we had, they did 4x100, 4x200. We had 1 kid run the 800, the 400, and then we had 1 kid do the long jump. Our 4x200 team finished 3rd or 4th. And then our 4x100 actually finished with a time of 47:56, and that was with one of our athletes actually tearing his shoe. Impressive. We were actually, when he tore his shoe, we were in 3rd or 4th, so we would have finished around 45 seconds. And if you look at those times, I compared it with the state times because I had something very, I didn't have that much time on my hands to go through all the qualifying times. And we would have placed around 7th or 8th, or not placed at all, or we wouldn't have even been in state for those times that we had. The 400 runner would have finished in the same spot in state. So you have that, and then our long jump actually finished 2nd in 3A. I know it says 3rd in there, that was my fault. He finished 2nd in 3A, and the 4A spot, he would have finished 3rd. As we stated before, track is weird because it's also an individual and team sport. If we're going to be moving teams up because of 4 kids and 4 different events, I don't necessarily think that we have, as we're building our program, it would be completely equitable for some of our other kids that are still in the 800, the 1600, or we're trying to expand our team. So having those kids go up to compete at a level that some of our other kids can't. For us as a school, we want to build our team to get up to 40. We have 45 kids. If you look at the numbers for all the other 40 that this group provided, we're right in the mix. We grew, we want to grow.
3 minutes, thank you.
Okay, any questions for Adam? Okay, and I do want to make sure again, I note that for boys track and field, again, the current alignment is on page 16 and the rubric points are on page 22, just so if you need to reference those. All right, thank you, sir. All right, and one more again, we want to hear before we revisit. This will be Somerset Sky Point. This is, there is on page 42, an introductory notification, I guess you'd say, from Ms. Wagner. And then the letter supplied today. That's in your handout there for Somerset Sky Point. And again, this is for boys track and field for Sky Point. You go from 5A to 4A, 5A to 4A. And same thing on the rubric points in those pages that exist. So Sky Point, if you would all introduce yourselves for the record, and good to see you. Like you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Here we are again. Somerset Sky Point, Jerry Wagner, high school, athletic admin, soon to be just admin. And then I'll let John and the rest introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Vogler. I'm going to be the admin over sports going forward. Taylor Seafield, 6'1", 195 of the AD. Paul Shepard, I coached both the boys and the girls track.
Jerry Wagner again, he's awfully modest. He was 3A coach of the year for girls. So this is we just completed our 2nd year of track at Sky Point. just to address a little bit of the elephant in the room, no, we don't recruit. We do recruit high quality coaches. 3 of which up here, the 3 of us are all from Wyoming, born and raised. So that's about the only recruiting we do. We have a lot of the system. I'm gonna let Paul talk about why we're petitioning not to be in 5A with 983 kids. But at the same time, we are in full support of combining girls and boys track and the proposal that came from the other coaches. Okay, Paul.
Paul Shepherd, Sky Point track coach. So just like Ms. Wagner said, if Tyrell's proposal is approved, then this won't matter because combining our boys and girls points will just put us to 4A. But the main thing is at Sky Point, I started this program 2 years ago, and it, as much as it pains me to like talk up myself, it's really just me coaching. I coach every single event except for the pros. And my pros coach shows up twice a week. So I understand the point system that we discussed with the past schools. But if we separated the state meet between 4A and 5A, that would, it would make it impossible for me to go to both. So I don't know how I would make that work with going to Reno and then going to Vegas for the state meet as well. I think that's the main way. So thank you.
Gentlemen, got about 30 seconds left.
Yeah, we just don't have a huge lack of facilities. We don't have a track. We've been ready from Centennial and Palo Verde. We have no mats, no pits. We don't have any javelins. You still javelin? Nope. All right, we don't need to. But yeah, we don't at our facilities, we just don't have anything. And so we're practicing 2 to 3 times a week, asking parents to go above and beyond to travel to different practice areas. And we are in full support of our Coopers. And thank you guys. You guys have a tough job. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you.
All right, committee members, questions?
So, on the proposal from the realignment committee, we have your boys placed in 5A and your girls in 4A. Correct. Okay. Thank you.
What was the success of the boys team relative to the, girls team? Was it distance running? Was it just kind of tied into your cross-country program?
Yeah, that's what it was. We had we scored math on it, but it was the majority of our points came from our distance kids. So we don't have any pole vaulters. Our triple jumpers are about hurdlers level. We have a couple high jumpers, but none that did well. It's distance, and we have a sprinter who it does okay as well.
Dallas Carson, 3A South, as a team scored in the 4A this past year, did your team place, what was your team placement? Not just individual team place in the boys and the 4A?
For state,
for the region meets.
For region, we got second. And then for state, we got third.
And the year before that?
The year before that, we got fourth and fifth. It's either third or fourth and fifth.
I think we were right behind you, weren't we?
Well, you were.
Or one of
No, they're 3A.
Yeah. You were in 4A this past 2 years, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, that's right. I was
In
thinking
track.
West Country.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Team. Appreciate it. All right, Chair, we're gonna circle back now. Track and field. Let's potentially get the action going here.
Okay.
So we're gonna start back at page 36 in the collective pages of 36 through 40. And that is the comprehensive proposal from, in essence, again, vetted by a member school and an administrator at a member school, but we have to push this. But the sport track and field, so boys and girls combined, page 38. So we are.
Well, just to comment on my part, we're in the north, we're together already. We don't have a person in this fight in terms of that request, but we do that, and I know that if we probably could do it, we would probably try to do it based on our kids and schools. But the reality is that it's really almost impossible for us to do because our coaches do the same thing. It's out of necessity more than anything else of having the boys and girls both in the 4A. I mean, both in the same 5A division at the same time. I don't know how we could do it any other way. Yes, Kevin.
Kevin from 4-5 South, just for the good of the committee, principal at Valley High School, which is another one that was moved down, did respond that it is approved of going down to 3A in the joint proposal.
Okay, so that's another one. And that's in the boy and girl both. Okay.
Staff, am I missing anything?
Sure, yes, here.
Yep, that's.
No other appeals? Dallas?
That was what I said. That's just kind of that, once again, that unique nature of the team and individual aspect, because a few years ago, Valley had one of the best cross-country long distance runners in the state. And they were in the 3A and back then as well. So just, it's that weird dynamic of a big school having a chance to, the odds of having that just one runner that can score 40 points or two runners score 80 by winning all their events, just, it does throw a.
Well, yeah, but you know, Dallas, you say that about Valley being a big school and they have 3,000. But, you know, I was at the track meet there at Liberty and you had the 2A girl and who ran the fastest mile. And I mean, those happen at every.
Unique.
It is unique, but it happens at every level. It just doesn't happen at the 5A, 4A level. It happens at the 1A, 2A level as well. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, Mike Over, charter school liaison. I mean, you know, you're always gonna have that outlier in track, of course. I mean, you could have the fastest person in the state and won it. You know, it doesn't matter. But I think, you know, in looking at Mr. Cooper's proposal, I mean, it's got huge consensus across the board. It checks the majority of the boxes with the exception of Canyon Springs, which would have to be, you know, reevaluated here if this, you know, if this is voted through. I mean, yeah, track and field, of course, is different from a traditional team sport. You know, you've got the combining of coaches, you know, works for that. So, you know, everything seems to be falling in line. You know, is it too good to be true? I don't know, you know, but it sure looks good.
Looking for a motion.
We're looking
Or
for a
not.
motion in Dallas.
Just one other question on this. If we vote for the new system, are we voting to have the schools that are in there, or is the proposal gonna be, I guess it's better on the motion, right? We can have a motion to accept the new boys, girls combined, correct? But a second motion if we wanna include, you know, Canyon Springs in the 5A to 4A, or is it just gonna be as is?
Yeah,
Still need further.
right.
Gotcha.
Is it this motion
Gotcha.
specific to who's listed in what?
This specific here,
classification
that would
and-
come up
yeah,
again.
And,
But once again, for El Dorado, they're listed in both boys and girls here. So if we voted to keep this system, you know, but the 3A says no, I just said El Dorado, no, we don't want to have El Dorado in the 3A, but I guess that we wouldn't have that vote because they're already going to be in on this vote.
yes, correct. This shows El Dorado in the 3A, boys and girls.
Hey, Rollins Ray Park, 3A North, couldn't a motion be accept all of that with the caveat that El Dorado is in the 4A? That can be a motion, right?
Thank you, Mr. Parks. No, I don't believe we could do that. That's not what's on the table.
But any board member can make a motion. Right? We're not accepting complete proposals. We haven't done that the entire time. We can make a motion. We can amend motions. It has to have a second. If it doesn't have a second, then it dies.
And I guess the board could certainly address that also next week too. That'd be a possibility. But we want to go that direction.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson, Paul Anderson, this is something I think you and I discussed on our telephone conversation. I don't believe we have to call it amended proposal.
Right.
Yeah.
So Paul Anderson, legal counsel, and that's kind of what I said earlier, with respect to the appeals. I think we have to hear each individual appeal. If you look at the comprehensive appeal and vote on that first,
as that is written and as presented, that's what you're voting on. So, you know, 5A, 4A, 3A and whatnot, as it's aligned in that proposal is what you would be accepting. Then, Canyon Springs, you know, their appeal, they want to move from 5A to 4A. That needs to be considered after that vote, assuming that vote is accepted for the comprehensive and approved, then Canyon Springs would be considered their appeal as to whether they'd go down to 4A. I had El Dorado and Somerset, Sky Point both saying that, hey, if the comprehensive appeal is accepted, we're fine with it. We're placed. So I think that, I don't know if I'm just going around in circles,
But we couldn't do that. What? We couldn't do that. We couldn't make it a board member couldn't, a committee member couldn't make a motion
This isn't a
to
appeal.
amend.
This isn't a.
Yeah, this is the.
They couldn't make an amendment.
So when if there's a motion to approve the comprehensive appeal, you can't
Change
parse
it.
out a portion of it. It's all or nothing.
So that's where we're at. Ron?
So Paul,
if I heard you correctly, part of what you said might be in conflict with what Ronnie may have said earlier regarding, so if we motion to approve this plan, well, can Canyon Springs appeal still be considered?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay.
Yes.
But it seems to me the only other appeal that would be considered would be Canyon Springs, because the other two schools that appealed, El Dorado and Somerset Sky Point,
I've already
stated, hey, if the comprehensive is accepted, we're good.
Mr. Good, Daniel's staff, they could even step up to the podium at that point and say, we now withdraw our appeal. I mean, they could always do that too, so there's no action that needs to be taken. That maybe that makes it cleaner overall.
So now, Secretary, so Paul, if I were to make a motion right now to approve this, but say we only want 12 teams in track in the South, that couldn't be, because that's not a part of this proposal. I can't make that motion.
Correct, you could not.
Any other questions, or we're looking for a motion? I don't want, if anybody has questions, I don't want to stop the process. Okay, we're looking for a motion at this point.
Again, I want to handle Dallas's concern with 3A. Again, you're looking at numbers of schools and not number of athletes. And you're the one yourself that said, no, track's a different beast. Some of these schools only have 9 and 10 track athletes participating. So I would say that bottom 5 or 6 schools there are going to probably be the size of your team by itself. So,
you know, I just if you look at the record books over, I mean, the top track records in all the state are coming from majority big school right over time, over whatever, those big schools are gonna get majority of those. So yeah, there is outliers, but over time, it's pretty consistent.
Sure.
And so I think there's just a couple of sports that just feel differently about it.
I know, we get to that.
Okay, Lucille, looking for a motion.
Make a motion to accept the joint boys and girls track proposal, as is the teams signed as they are.
Art Anderson, large school north, I second the motion.
We have a first and a second. Are there any other questions or discussions? Okay.
I'd like to do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote on this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Art Anderson,
Yes.
Mike Brooks, Sean Fitzsimons,
Yes.
Ron Marzon,
Oh, Mike Brooks, we hear you there?
Yes, sorry, my phone was, I couldn't get off mute in time. Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you, sir.
Ken Higby, who is not here. Dallas Larson,
Yes.
Kevin McPartlin,
Yes.
Tony Colgate,
Yes.
Rick Parks,
Yes.
Mike Shaw,
Yeah.
David Beck,
Yes.
Just Dr. Higby absent. All right, hey, thank you for those of you again on our Zoom. Appreciate you three. Okay, so that then, let's now turn to Canyon Springs appeal. And this is obviously still a valid appeal. Now the comprehensive being approved, they were still gonna be in the 5A anyway, so Canyon Springs appeal 5A to 4A. They're both boys and girls, which just wraps them in together. So Canyon Springs again. 5A to 4A, boys and girls track and field. Is there a motion?
Rangers on 4A5A South, a motion to accept Canyon Springs appeal.
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Going once? Second, going twice? All right, it fails for lack of second.
Fail
We'll
for
actually
lack
reach
of a second, Canyon Springs will stay 5A. Girls and boys.
Okay, for the record, El Dorado, Adam's there. Withdraw, thank you, sir. Okay, Sky Point for the record. Ms. Wagner, thank you. Withdraw, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I know the team, we got lunch waiting for us. How many do we have here in the room for swimming? Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's, we gotta do it. I want to make, yeah, I don't want to have anybody. So let's go to swimming. Give me 1 second. We'll introduce it. I want to check off this real quick here. Yeah, go do a bathroom break. Let's do that. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, then I'm sorry. I know lunch is getting late, everybody. I apologize. We got to do our due diligence here with the swimming group that's here.
What's your role in getting this? Twelve threes. 2,900.
I don't think turn it's gonna take very long. I don't think turn it's gonna take long.
Just take, we're on a 5-minute break right now.
Just,
Yeah, you restroom.
3-minute break.
That is our current alignment, coming out of May 30th. That's boys on page 14. Rubric points for the boys swimming and diving, page 24. Then girls swimming and diving alignment, based out on May 30th on page 15. And then girls swimming and diving rubric points, page 25. What we have for swimming, first of all, is a comprehensive proposal that starts on page 43 and goes through page 46. So again, 43 through 46, that's where we'll start with our comprehensive proposal. And then we have appeal potentially from Doral Red Rock, boys and girls. And Desert Pines, I have Desert Pines on, but we haven't seen any Desert Pines, correct? They pulled it, I'm sorry. Oh, right, but you pulled it from swimming. Okay, all right, I just want to make sure. I knew you're here, we just had you up here, but I didn't see anything else in here for that sport, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something on our notification. So, okay, give me 1 second, let me get rid of that. Yeah, thank you, Megan, appreciate that. Okay.
Johnny, I also mentioned to you that if this doesn't get approved, Mojave has an appeal.
Okay,
I talked to you about that before the meeting.
Okay. and Mojave's here, yeah, you, right, I know. Okay, so you're separate, all right. Very good, all right, so we're going to start on page 43, and Mr. Partland is going to present as the administrator, in this case, principal, on behalf of the group. So, Mr. Partland, you know the drill. Go ahead, please.
Kevin
Here we go.
McPartland, swimmer extraordinaire, principal at Harvard Middle School. I will turn my time to Teresa Schultz, representing the swimming coach.
And Teresa, just for the record, please introduce. Thank you.
Yes, hi, I am Teresa Schultz. I'm the swim coach at Mojave High School, and I'm going to be joined up here by, I am also a board member for the Southern Nevada Swim Coaches Association, and I am joined up here by Greg Gonzalez, swim coach and board member. Crystal Urso from Doral Red Rock, coach. Jean Reese from Spring Valley, coach. Administrator at Doral. David Stump from Coronado, board member as well as coach, and then Megan Cruz, athletic director. Megan Cruz, athletic director, swim coach and board member.
Teresa, if I might, I'm sorry, make sure everybody that we do have you signed in, okay, just so as I'm writing down, we don't miss anybody on the presentation list. Thank you. Sorry, Teresa, please, go ahead.
We all are representing all three classes, 3A, 4A, and 5A. As you can see, we are here in force intentionally to present our group appeal that affects all high school swim programs. Our arguments are similar to what you've already heard presented by track. In addition, we want to highlight that it impacts swim, our rivalries between schools when we are split between two different classes, our boys and our girls. And it also affects the camaraderie and the spirit of the sport within the teams. Doral, Mojave, and Desert Pines have individual appeals that they have mentioned, we just discussed, that are already addressed in our comprehensive appeal. So if our comprehensive appeal is approved, then those three individual appeals will not need to take place and they will be withdrawn because we've already incorporated those into ours. Included is also in our packet a letter from Clark High School because they are on the cusp of the 5A, 4A split in our division, and they want to stay in 5A, not be pulled down, even though Doral is coming down with the same score that Clark has. So you'll see their letter in there. They want to stay up. Doral wants to come down. So that's why we drew our line where we drew our line. That gives us 10 teams in 5A for the South in comparison to the North, which has 9 teams for the boys and 9 teams for the girls. In your alignment that you produced, there was 14 teams for the boys in the South compared to the 9 teams for the North. So there's a big disparity in how many teams your alignment committee produced in all of our classes, compared to what we're proposing. We do have a unanimous vote amongst all of our coaches, and yes, it was done by Google form. So they all submitted their vote, which I've included in our packet as well. We did have one team who was not reachable, and I did text her, I called her, I left her a voicemail, I emailed her. It is one coach for Silverado, and she was not reachable. And then the White Pine doesn't have a coach, and they also didn't compete this year, so I had no one to reach out to for that one to take a vote for us. So everyone else though was unanimous. All of our coaches have seen what our alignment looks like in our proposal, and they've agreed to it based, that's where they got their information to agree when we voted. Now, the differences with track is that we only have 1 or 2 coaches for swim. We don't get 5 or 6 for different events. So when you split us, boys and girls, that 1 or 2 coaches cannot be split. We just physically can't be in 2 places at the same time. Our swimmers are missing out on the coaches that are there to support them and work them through their events when we get to postseason, regionals, and state. So splitting us is even more difficult for us as a team than it is for track, which is in a similar situation as ours, and a similar sport to us. In closing, I do want to say that we are in favor of a concept that baseball proposed for future alignment cycles, and we are looking forward to working with all of you on coming up with new rubrics and new ways to determine what that alignment looks like for the future cycle. But we all knew that this wasn't the place to address that today. So we are focusing just on the combination of our boys and girls to keep us together when we align.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, committee members first, then we'll come back to staff if we have any checks and balances on points, rubric scores. Sloan, gonna start us off?
Yes, absolutely. I would just like to say to the committee that I've worked in when I did Tim's job, closely with this group of individuals, and they are very well organized, just like the Southern track coaches, outspoken. These people put their heart and soul in everything in which they do, and I appreciate all of you being here in mass, and I commend you for that. I also commend the fact that you included your survey results. Thank you very much, because that has a huge impact, and I think that visual in itself, it says a lot. So
If I could just speak to that, the one that did not return the vote was unchanged from their status from our proposal to this proposal. So even though Silverado didn't respond, they did not change. They're still 4A and vote.
So again, I just want to commend the work that you guys do for Southern Nevada. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Sheriff, Donnie Nelson from the staff. This is gonna be something along the lines, Pam, of what I know the next cycle, if we were to have something like this, it is important, I think, to see votes from coaches, but I think it's also important to see votes from the administrator of each school too. I would love to see, this is the administrator's vote, put your name to it. This is the coach's vote, put your name to it, and do they actually match? We didn't guide you to do that this time. This is a comment because I know down the road, we've got to get more complete in how we operate this process. So Teresa, that's just a personal comment for me, not anything to do with this.
And if I could piggyback on that too, because from the standpoint of my office, this is what I hear from principals. I know what's best for my school. And there's a lot of times that coaches want one thing, principals want another. And I agree with Donnie, and that's something we need to work out, how we need to bridge that together, because the last thing we want is, hey, the swim coaches came in mass, and then all of a sudden you go back to your school and we're going in this direction, and principals saying, whoa, wait a minute. So, but yeah, that's later on down. I agree.
Anything else committee wise, questions?
Well, I love the job that you guys have done in looking at the realignment committee had 9 in the 5A North. There's 9 And our realignment committee had 14 for southern regions. It's big disparity there, especially when you're trying to see for state and those kind of things. 3A and 4A in the south, there were 14 schools in our proposal. There's 20 to 21 in yours. 20 in
There's 10 in
yours,
Mountain, 10 in Desert.
which is standalone state. And then in the south, it decreased. Your proposal decreased the southern 3A schools from 16 to 11. And the 13 stayed. There's a couple more in the north. That's what I have, 13 to 11. What do you? Or is
No,
it
we have
13?
13 ours.
13 was, it's
We have 13 for 3 days.
well, their proposal has 13 and there's 13 in the north. So you guys did a little bit better job than we did in terms of the equity aspect on that and making that equal. And I know that the northern schools would appreciate that as well in terms of that. My guess is they would be saying, yeah, we'd rather only have 11 southern schools coming up here with this one instead of 14 schools being represented, so.
And along with that, if you look at the boys in particular, the alignment you guys did, if you combine north and south, how many teams were then in 5A? You guys had 23 teams total in 5A,
Yeah.
doing north and south. We have 19.
Yes.
In 4A, you have 14 teams, we have 20. In 3A, you had 28 teams for the boys in 3A. We have 26.
Yeah.
So your numbers were bigger, much bigger, and had more southern teams in 5 and 3 competing against a smaller group in the north, which isn't fair.
Well, and I think just to go along with that, some of those teams in the south, when we did have that discussion, we knew that they didn't have full teams as far as the number of participants who were actually swimming. So that's why that number was a little bit higher, is that we knew that some of those schools, but other than that, I like it.
We do have a significant amount of teams that have very, very small numbers. When I hear track talking about 45 kids, and I'm like, I had 5 this year between boys and girls combined.
Yes.
I'm not fighting to stay down in 3 because who's in 3A? You said it earlier. I gotta compete against Boulder, Malapa, Virgin Valley. I don't want to compete against them. Coral, I don't want to fight against them. I'd rather stay in 4A where I can compete because I cannot compete in 3A with those teams. So my one boy graduated. I have no boys now.
So what are we looking for?
Well, I still want to hear, any more questions?
Any more
questions?
here before
Let's
we
go one at a time. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I still want to go to Red Rock's appeal. We need to hear that first,
Thank you.
depending on what happens. Thank you, everybody. Yes, we still want to hear this appeal. Yeah,
There's Red Rock.
yeah. Red Rock, we still want to hear the appeal. Yeah, thank you. Come up, please, again. And once again, we know you're here, but for the record, again, if you would, so anybody watching, listening, can listen to it. And we have 3 minutes, so go ahead, please.
Will not take 3 minutes. So
Thank you.
Red Farmer, Athletic Administrator at the Red Rock.
Crystal Urso, some coach.
The letters before you, the email before you, but we are appealing our move to 5A as a swim program. We are 2 years old. We're just getting our footing underneath us as a program. We have 1,000 students and trying to compete against Coronado with close to 3,400, Liberty with 3,100, Shallow with 3,100. It's just going to put our program in a bad place. We're just 2 years old. We're just getting our footing. We're just getting swimmers into the program. We're just starting to get our sea legs underneath us. And then for us to move up and have to compete at that level, at this point, we don't think it's good for our program. I'm gonna let Crystal speak more to the program.
I was just gonna say, yes, we started 2 years ago in this. We've grown from 15 to 29 this year. A lot of freshmen, they might drop off. I had 2 swimmers, one boy, one girl that did help us, but that was it. My previous one couldn't swim this year, so that was that. So we've grown, but we're still building our team with freshmen.
And your appeal is going from,
But you guys moved us to 5A and then we would like to stay at 4A.
so in our bill, in our
Yes.
process, we had you in the 5A.
Yes. If
In
this,
their proposal,
yes,
you're in the.
we stay at 4A. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Dynasty staff, Doral was Mr. Davis, correct me if I'm wrong, Doral was the last team
Yes.
in for both
Yes.
boys and
And
girls.
girls,
I-
yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Absolutely.
Farmer, appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you.
All right, swimming, any other appeals out there for swimming? Yes, Teresa Mojave, please. Thank you.
Teresa Schultz from Mojave High School swim team. So if the comprehensive appeal does not get approved, we are appealing to keep our boys up in 4 with our girls team. Because as a solo coach, it is impossible for me to be in 2 places at once, to coach a boys team here and a girls team there, with 3A state being, could be in Reno one year and 4A always being down here. Regionals also, that puts me at 4 different regional meets in 1 week. It's just very hard on scheduling as well as being there in a good mental state to support my swimmers when we're exhausted trying to work through those postseason meets. So I would like to keep my boys and my girls together, and keeping them in 4A is where we'd like to stay.
Okay.
And go ahead, you want to clarify?
Yeah, just to clarify,
Sorry.
an appeal has to come from an administrator.
I have the letter here. I have copies for everyone. Donnie had asked me to hold on to them
Yes.
until I was able to.
Can you pass those out so we can have that?
Thank you,
And it is on behalf of the school principal, Greg Hall.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a letter from the administrator?
Yeah.
I did speak to Mr. Cole this morning. He had asked if he needed to be here. I don't know if the appeal was in, but so I did speak to him.
Thank you. Make sure you get a point of order.
This one's.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, board.
All right, so we have the comprehensive appeal, we have Doral, and we have Mojave. So let's go to the comprehensive one first. That's the one that the group presented. And again, starts on page 43 and is completed on page 46. So that's what we're addressing for. Discussion. Motion.
Can I make a motion to appeal, to approve the comprehensive plan for combining boys and girls swim?
Thank you. We have a motion.
Ron, on second.
Ron, we have a second. Thank you very much. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Zoomers?
Wake up, Ray.
My God, Ray.
I said aye, I'm sorry.
Now we hear you. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Ready, so
Yeah, you got it.
at that point, we do not need Doral, we will withdraw, I'm assuming. Thank you, sir. Mr. Farmer, appreciate it. That's great. I'll have you withdraw. Thank you. I'm sorry, hold on.
I
abstain. Yeah.
Do we have enough guesses in the room? Care of that. Says that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rated states.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna make sure that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Okay, now let me give me 1 second. Okay, hey, let's committee. let's do a 10-minute. Yeah, and they also, I mean, that's why I need to mark it down real quick here. Okay, committee, we are going to be a little bit of a time frame here. I still want to make sure we don't have any other questions regarding boys volleyball or boys golf. When we come back, let's please, so while we're going to go get lunch, come back, let's get to our desk and work. We have just over an hour, and we've got to wrap through the agenda to do a final, right, number 9, a final overall approval. And then we got 10 tournament formats before our public comment or adjournment. So go get lunch. Walter, thank you, sir. Lead the way.
Back to order, please. Thank you.
Okay, boys golf. Ms. Wonder, anything that we've seen in any appeals? Anybody aware of anything for boys golf? Okay. Skip past that. Let's go to page 18, boys volleyball. Is one anything there you've seen for boys volleyball? Western, we had a verbal notification. We expected Western to be here to appeal from 3A to 4A. Western is not here. So boys volleyball stay right where it is. I won't make any other comments to what Western could or could not do from here on. So here we go. So Sheriff Stallworth, based on legal counsel advice, number 9, we don't need to take any action. It feels like we've covered everything within item 8 on a sport by sport basis. So number 9, we will not address, I guess. Is that a table, Paul, on number 9? Or just no action?
So all I understand, council, you can have an agenda item and you can just ignore it. So for me, there's no problem with it.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we ignore number 9. Okay, tournament formats. Let's start with in our order for item number 10. Baseball, page 49, Mr. Davis, you between bites. Start with baseball. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Bart Davis and I staff, this is all stuff we talked about last week in the meeting. Nothing has changed on these. These are actually out of last week's packet for that matter. What we went with the last 2 years, if any adjustments need to be made, that's what this committee can recommend going forward. We have heard some comments regarding region tournaments that maybe instead of letting individual regions set formats, the NIAA office would do that. Nobody's made any decision on that, but I think you can't see it on the screen because I haven't shared the screen yet. But you can see in your packets everything that we've done the last 2 years. We are open to any suggestions as to what may or may not change within that format. I just get up on the screen. All right. 5A Northern Region did all 9, Southern Region did 4 and 4. The state obviously we took 2 and 2. 4A tournament was a 12-team tournament, 6 of the desert, 6 of the mountain. 3A, we know that was changing because they're not going to have the inter-league play. And they would just take top teams out of each classification, of each league, I should say, to go forward. State would be 2 and 2. They didn't need to change on that.
All right. Anyone else for baseball? Our league presidents.
Sure. I have one comment, and I'm stealing from Tony, but he's chewing. Just with what we've done with alignment, you know, we have 15 teams in the south and the 10 in the north, so we made it fairly uneven. I think just to acknowledge.
Write down your comment. It should be noted. Yes, thank you.
9, right? 9.
Anything else on baseball?
That is on the record.
Al Larson, Grace out. When would be the correct time to talk about who 5A plays, who's partnered with 5A, who's partnered with 3A, who's partnered with 1A? I kind of talked about it last time, Donnie, about
right
3A kind of not getting some of the same facilities in state because they weren't aligned with the 5A. When would be the time where we're going to decide who's with 5A, who's with 1A, who's with 2A?
Not sort of, not really. I know our board agenda for those next week's meetings already posted. September gets very late for transportation purposes. And so what Mr. Larson's referring to, in essence, right now, when we have a north-south split on sports and where schools go for state championships, the 5A and the 2A, minus some sports now, they're gonna have the north playing, not 5A necessarily. The 5A and 2A are generally combined, and the 1A and 3A are generally combined. And what Mr. Larson's addressing is potentially changing who is aligned with who. And what are you, again, I got to figure out how we can even address this right now, because I know you have mentioned, that is correct. You mentioned that last week. Is there, speak freely, what are you, again, I don't know we can do that here, I just got to find when to do it. I'm just kind of curious your thoughts real quick, that's all.
I did, it just came really apparent in baseball, over the last 2 years was the sport that mainly got affected, because of the 5A getting to play with the Aviators Park, with the 2A, the 3A, 1A were up north at Fernley High School. And then this past year, when they went up north, they got to play at Reno, where the 3A played at Fernley High School, and not at Reno for the baseball one the year before. So that was a pretty big disparity as far as the facilities being played at between the 5A, 2A, and the 3A, 1A.
Hey, Mr. Joyce, I don't want to speak, I know from the staff, I don't want to speak out of turn for an agenda item that maybe we can't be talking about, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Tournament sites, north-south, there's no guarantee we'll ever get the same site from one year to the other in one part of the state. It's just, if that's what it's based on only, I don't think we change. If there's a proposal to change come from a school or a league president, then I think then we would address that accordingly. I think it'd have to be a proposal that to be made. I think we'd have to agendize at the board level.
Would the proposal be that the 5A and 3A are now the two leagues that are combined for the next 2 years? Is that kind of what?
I mean, Daniel's from staff, I think that could be the proposal. From a state office standpoint, to think about facilities that we will always try and achieve to host sites. The number of participants in a 2A, 1A combined situation is not equal to the 5A and 3A. The 3A brings massive crowds, the 5A can bring massive crowds, the 2A brings everybody into town. It's just not the same size as the 3A. The 1A will bring everybody in town. It's just not the same size as the 3A or the 5A. And so if we have the opportunity to have a certain venue, we always want all of our classes to play in the best venues possible. That would create some challenges, I think, in trying to, just being very honest, afford venues. You know, but I can't even guarantee we're gonna be in facility A for 2 more years, so everybody gets to play, like you said, in the Aviators ballpark. I couldn't guarantee, we could do as a staff anyway. Bart, go ahead, Mr. Davis.
It's probably a better conversation for the board to have.
Yeah, let's be careful. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's move on.
So I think the 1A would have the same, they would want to eventually play with the 5A to get those facilities, if that was the case.
Right, we should just combine them all.
Yeah, we need to get back on track. I'm sorry. Mike, sorry, then we need to wrap it up. Go ahead.
That's just been the sentiment of a while. There's probably more public comment right now. But I would say that we have some, I mean, you want to bring Favorite Lake in, they would rival with anybody's attendance in the state. Pretty close. So it depends on who you're talking about, even in the 1A, that, everybody. It depends on who and what sport you're talking about, I think, in these things, but I think there is a lot of push to put everybody back together and get us support.
Okay, so I think that would have to come to the Board of Control. And maybe that's what it is, but it involves a lot of different people and funds and travel. All right, I'm sorry, we got way off track. Let's go to, Mr. Anderson, I think we can take action altogether. If there's no disagreements or changes by sport, I think we can roll right through each sport. Or is it the venture of the committee to approve what's written right now on page 49 for baseball? What is the flavor of the committee? We can go sport by sport, or we can.
I would suggest you just take motions on each sport.
Okay.
And then, in case, otherwise.
I need a motion to approve, baseball.
Yep.
Segment 5.45 South, I make a motion to accept the playoff proposal for baseball as presented in the package.
Tony Posey, 45 South, on second.
We have a first and a second. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you. It's that was Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Mike, thank you.
Mr. Parks has dropped off. He went to a meeting, district meeting.
Awesome.
Yep.
We just got through the question and motion in this report, was to accept what is written here, is what is written here to the 3A North, as we said, They are not having the crossover leagues anymore.
South.
Is Dale, no?
We are not, it's not crossovers, they're only determined by points. It's just a straight top three in each.
Yes.
Yes. Are they doing 4 for 18?
In baseball,
They're gonna do 4.
in the north. North, and south, because
North,
I don't know about the north, the south was doing 4 and 4.
North is doing 3 and 3 from my understanding. Okay.
Because they shortened their tournament, so they have 4 extra games in there, 8 extra games.
Okay, so good catch, Mr. Davis. So we need to withdraw, right? Re-motion. Mr. Parks is not on, he's no longer,
Mr. Parks is not part of this meeting.
no.
So withdraw the motion, or amend it.
Yeah. you can amend it, right?
Mr. Parks, we need the same.
Yeah, let me withdraw it then, just to make sure we get it correctly.
Thank you.
So to recap, if this may help, the 3A North would change the top 3 in each team, each league. 3A South would change the top 4 in each league. Is that correct, Mr. Larson?
You want me to?
Yeah.
All right, now Sergeant 3A South, I will motion that we accept the baseball for 5A and 4A as written. And for 3A North, the top 3 teams from both the East and West League will make the region tournament. And for the 3A Southern region, the top 4 teams from each side will make the region playoffs.
Perfect. And the final second, we have a second. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any? Thank you. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, Mr. Davis, softball on page 50 then, Mr. Larson, same thing, for the amendments on the 3A, is that correct?
Change here between baseball and softball, 5A North region, it takes top 8, it takes on 9. You have 12 again, 4A. Everything else stays the same as what we just approved then in baseball based on the 3 and 3 in the north, 4 and 4 in the south. We do a 4-team state to each.
Looking for a proposal?
So if you want to restate what you did and then.
I can, yeah, that was Sergeant 3A South for softball. I make a motion that we accept the 5A and 4A as written. And for 3A North, the top 3 teams from each side, East and West, will make the region playoffs. And for the 3A South, the top 4 teams from each league, Desert and Mountain, would make region playoffs.
Great. Do we have a second?
Chuck was having 2A South, let's say.
Simon's second. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, boys golf, page 51.
I don't believe there are any changes here based on anything that we've done. The South will still set qualifying standards for each of its tournaments to go forward. Again, we start talking about 5A and 4A, who's on top here. Let's keep in mind that some of these, in the spring, the 5As all stay up in the north. So everything would stay as status quo, whereas in the fall, and winter, it's large school classification. Northern 5A takes 6 and 6 to its region tournament based on Nevada Cup points. Northern 3A does not do a tournament. They base theirs on final standings to determine the qualifiers. For 5A and 3A, we shortened up the 5A qualifiers to 3 teams and 6 individuals, simply because the tee times was harder and harder to come by. 4A would advance directly to state still. We've heard nothing to say that they want to try to have 2 region tournaments and try to get the golf courses and the tee times.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, if I may, just for the record, I would like to continue the conversation I think I brought up at the last meeting in regards to the second day during state. To maybe have a qualifier, so we're not for state golf, we're not having these poor kids shooting 123 strokes in the second day as we've had.
And that happened?
Oh, yeah, look at the 3A scores. I think it's time we have that discussion. But I don't think this is the time.
I agree. Thank you.
Is that, I'm sorry, Donna's staff, is that for only read, or is it for state also? I guess that's actually answer the question. Cuts for state also?
Well, let me
Not
ask,
behind, but
would we need those scores for qualifying for state? If we eliminated day two,
team sports.
it might affect it.
And kids who travel.
So it'd be state only?
No.
Regionals.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, we'll discuss.
Yeah.
We got.
But I think it's time we have that discussion later on.
Thank you.
Okay, we need a motion.
Motion, anybody?
Here's for in my base south, I motion to accept the boys golf. As is.
Art Anderson, Clark School, North, I second the motion.
We have a first and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, boys and girls track and field on page 52.
One of the same, nothing changes here. Maximum co-competitors for event, have a northern region, one team obviously for the relay event, can enter as long as you're meeting qualifying standards. South, very similar to that, a maximum of 4, having qualifying standards. The standards are different for the two regions. The state can go 4 and 4, very similar to the 3A in both. We do have separate leads, technically lead, not region, but that's all right. Same thing for the 4A, and the top 4 finishers in each of those would come forward for state meet also. This one's pretty cut and dry.
Any questions, any discussion?
So we, just to be clear, are you doing the boys track and field and girls together? Because it's technically combined. So you might as well.
They're the same exact format.
Same exact format,
That's fine.
girls and
Go ahead.
boys, yes.
Proceed that way.
Thank you.
That will be mentioned in the proposal. Yes,
Art Anderson, Lark School North, motion to accept boys and girls track and field region and state, playoff proposal as drawn up.
it's written.
Tony Posey, 45 South, second.
Anthony, second. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Boys and girls swimming and diving on page 53. Mr. Davis.
In the frame here, up to 4 for event, one team relay, provide to meet qualifying standards for regions of 5A. Same thing for the 3A, as well as the 4A, which again are technically league meets. The state takes the top 4 finishers in each of those regions / league meets to meet each other. Basically the same thing as correct.
Either.
Tony Posey, 45 South, I make a motion, we approve boys and girls swimming and diving as presented.
Sean, Simons to a South. Second.
First. Simons does a second. Any other questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Ayes have it.
Oh, what happened?
That's volleyball, I guess it didn't make the packets,
Oops, that's not good.
but we can walk through it.
Yeah. Shoot. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Davis, you walk us through it, please. Yeah, we can do it. Yeah. I
Close your eyes. As you know, the volleyball state is all South. We don't have any northern schools competing in it. What we did this past year for 5A, we took the top 4 in the mountain, top 4 in the desert for an 18 tournament. Played it out to a state championship, no second region tournament or anything like that, just played it all the way through. 4A, we took the top 6 in each league, the mountain, the desert, played that out for a 12-team tournament, again, all the way through, no separate tournaments going forward. And then the 3A, a little bit of a change here from what we did, because we were doing the point system again in the 3A South. That is going away, so what we look at is the top 4 in the mountain, top 4 in the desert for an 18 tournament that would mirror what the 5A is doing. Mr. Larson, is that correct? So 18, 4 and 4 in the 5A, 12 teams, 6 and 6 in the 4A, 18, 4 and 4.
Need a motion.
Point Posey 45A South, I make a motion, we approve the boys volleyball playoff. Format as presented.
Ron,
is on second first.
Ron, with the second. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Okay, that wraps up number 10. We are to public comments.
Public comment this time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not on the agenda. Items raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon until compliance with notice procedures of the open meeting law have been accomplished. Members of the public who wish to submit their comments via email were instructed to contact Tina Wonder prior to the meeting to have their comments read into the record. Members of the public present need to complete a green public comment card and submit it to the administrative assistant prior to the opening of this item. A limit of 3 minutes per person and or 5 minutes for a spokesperson of the group will be imposed for both in-person and email comments. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are determined to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. Public comments received by the email will be read into the records. Tia, do we have any?
No.
No, we do not. Live public comments in this location, are there any? No, there are not. In the Zoom land out there, are there any public comments? Here's the crickets. That is it. Meeting is adjourned.
Adjourn at 1:38.
Meeting is adjourned. Oh, hold on.
Hey now. I don't know, because I don't know the process of putting the packet together. But would it be possible to put it together by program? So you have baseball alignment, baseball rubric, baseball appeal. So we're not having to flip or slide, slip all over the place. I don't know the process of putting it together. If that creates a hassle, maybe.
That's a great
To be
idea.
more efficient with the
I
paper.
got them all scattered here.
Yeah, I know. And I was jumping pages too. You tell, I said, go this page, tear them out and put them on. Yes, for the board meeting packet, put them right together.
Boys that need to just, that's realignment.
Yeah, realignment, yeah. For realignment, because you got your rubric, you got your alignment, you got your
Yeah.
deals.
Yeah, sure.
All right, any other comments for the